Everyone has been able to be admitted into the room, thanks to the protocol team. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed volunteers from all corners of the continent, it is a great honor and privilege to welcome you today. Before I could get started, my name's Krista Omohoza, me who's going to be chairing this conference, but we have multiple more guest speakers and moderators that are going to sit on this panel. It is a very warm welcome to the 11th meeting gathering of the Rwanda Internet Governance Forum. It is a very distinct honor and privilege to introduce this visionary leader of the region. With unwavering dedication, that he has led the Rwanda's digital identity and enhanced its online presence through the private sector. Please kindly allow me and join me to welcome with an enthusiastic round of applause, Mr. Alex Nare. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Krista. I want to meet that Alex Nare because helping people to actually solve real problems that they face and really leveraging it in such a way that there's a feedback. Leveraging it so that they can do more. Since we all have come to realize that the internet levels the playing field. Levels the playing field in which way? Previously, the best education could only be accessed in certain regions of the world. Today, the same education, the same type of material and content can be accessed right here as we use the internet. So from affordability to accessibility to protecting us as we use this, we use the internet. These are the discussions we really want to foster and the IGF fosters, and to ensure that there's participation and agency from both sides of the, all sides of the stakeholders. So whether it is the users or the promoters, that is us, the IT companies, that is the private sector that actually builds the solutions, but also those that protect us, that make sure that as we participate in this internet economy or digital economy, that we're actually using the best of it. So in that light, I really want to thank our partners, the partners that always come through for us as RICTA, as the Internet Governance Forum, in making this happen. You see a lot of logos here. I think if I start mentioning names, I may stumble some people, but the logos that you see there, they're actual partners that participate in one way or another within the planning, organization, financing that makes this happen. So I want you to, let's just put our hands together and thank them. At least that's the least we can do. Yeah. So in the same light, I also want to thank our government officials. Honorable Minister will be arriving anytime soon, but she has requested us to go ahead. She wants to sit through and listen to the discussions. So she's asked us that we could go ahead with the first sessions. That is, I think, here the panel. So as I pass on to Krista and the moderator for this panel, please don't lose heart. Don't think we're here alone. We're here with several dignitaries from the government, representatives of different government institutions, and the conversations that we're going to have here are meaningful, but also are going to be very practical in nature in terms of how do we apply after the conversation. How do we put whatever we discuss here into practice. So thank you, and again, I appreciate the fact that you're very early here, and I would like to pass back to Krista for the next sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alex. I know you just thanked a lot of the partners that we see on the screen, but this conference could also we would not have made it without the organizers. And to kindly also acknowledge the organizers who are also part of the board, we have RICTA, we have VUBA Technologies, we have Internet Society, ICT Chamber, RURA, with the multiple partners that we also see on the screen, including GIZ, Ministry of ICT, RISA, Liquid Telecom, we have IREMBO, we have Rwanda Investigation Board, we have the National Cybersecurity Authority, the Internet Society Foundation, Spider-Build, and we have ADECOR. As Alex just mentioned, I don't think this could have happened with just one organization without us understanding, and there's a level of us having these multiple discussions can lead us to take actions to move forward. As we proceed forward, we were also honored to have the UN into this organization as well of the conference. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me, and esteemed guests, allow me to also welcome the next keynote speech. This is going to be no other than Dr. Ozania Ogielo, who is the UN resident coordinator to Rwanda. As Alex has mentioned a bit, and also we have been part of this conversation, the internet holds boundless opportunities to uplift the community, to stimulate economic growth, for the advancement of education and the healthcare. It is an honor to introduce as our next keynote speaker, Dr. Ozania, who is, as I've said, the UN resident. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, he was not able to make it to the conference. But we're fortunate enough to have a pre-recorded video of his presence into the speech, and he wanted to also share his mind into this topic. Please join me again, giving a warm, enthusiastic welcome again and applause, as we also welcome the media team to support us into showcasing the speech. Thank you so much.
Honorable Minister and my dear sister, Paula Ngabire, distinguished guests, esteemed participants, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Good morning, bonjour, moramutse. Thanks to the internet, I am able to address you today, despite being physically apart. This invisible infrastructure helps us to come together in the spirit of progress and empowerment to discuss the vital theme, the internet we want, empowering all people. Talking about the internet and other cutting-edge technologies in Rwanda, I'm reminded of Rwanda's remarkable journey. This nation has emerged as a beacon of hope, resilience, and progress. Defying all odds, we all know the visionary leadership of this country revived its breathtaking landscapes, vibrant culture, and dynamic people, and made a nation embracing the opportunities of the digital age possible. The internet has become an integral part of our daily lives, transcending geographical boundaries and connecting individuals, communities, and nations in unprecedented ways. It is a gateway to knowledge, a catalyst for innovation, and an enabler of opportunities. As we envision the internet we want, we must prioritize inclusivity and accessibility to ensure that every Rwandan can partake in the benefits it offers. Our commitment to inclusivity begins with ensuring equitable access to the internet across Rwanda's diverse landscapes, from urban centers to remote villages. Internet connectivity should not be a privilege, but a fundamental right accessible to all. Together, we must bridge the digital divide, leaving no one behind, so that every citizen can harness the vast potential of the digital world. Ladies and gentlemen, empowering all people through the internet extends beyond mere connectivity. We must strive to promote digital literacy and skills development empowering Rwandans with the knowledge and expertise to navigate the digital landscape confidently. By fostering a digitally literate society, we equip individuals to seize opportunities in education, entrepreneurship, and civic engagement, ultimately driving the nation's progress. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the One UN Rwanda family to express my profound appreciation for two groundbreaking milestones that the government of Rwanda has accomplished, each a testament to its dedication to advancing technology, innovation, and safeguarding the rights of its citizens. We are grateful for the release of the National Artificial Intelligence Policy of 2022 and the enactment of Data Protection Law of 2021. The National Artificial Intelligence Policy, a forward-thinking and inclusive framework, represents Rwanda's foresight in harnessing the transformative potential of artificial intelligence. By laying the groundwork for AI-driven advancements, Rwanda has demonstrated its readiness to embrace the fourth industrial revolution. This policy enables research and development, promoting partnerships between academia, industry, and international entities. By encouraging innovation, fostering digital literacy, and supporting AI startups, Rwanda is poised to lead the way in leveraging technology for social and economic development. In tandem with its AI policy, Rwanda has also taken significant strides to protect its citizens' personal data and privacy through the Data Protection Law. This landmark legislation reflects Rwanda's commitment to safeguarding fundamental rights in a data-driven world. At its core, data protection is about empowering individuals to have control over their personal information. By establishing clear data protection, usage, and storage guidelines, the Data Protection Law will enable Rwandans to make informed decisions about how their data is utilized. The law ensures that individuals' privacy rights are respected in a digital age by enshrining data protection principles, transparency, and accountability. As we traverse a landscape where data has become a valuable commodity, Rwanda sets an exemplary standard, balancing innovation and progress with preserving privacy and dignity. Ladies and gentlemen, these achievements are not only about Rwanda's global standing as a pioneer in technology and governance, but also should inspire the rest of the world to follow suit. Rwanda's dedication to inclusive and sustainable development serves as a beacon of hope for other nations seeking to navigate the complexities of the digital era. I want to reiterate the United Nations Rwanda commitment to supporting Rwanda's efforts to create an inclusive and empowering digital environment that benefits all its citizens and contributes to its sustainable development by leveraging the United Nations expertise, convening power, and resources. And I like to quote my boss, the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, on World Telecommunication and Information Society Day in May this year. Quote, "Technology must be an instrument to reduce divides, not deepen them. As the internet becomes ever more central to value creation and innovation, least developed countries risk falling further behind. We must dramatically improve accessibility and inclusivity and eliminate the digital divide. We must support the creation of digital public goods, open source software, open data, and open content. We must invest in the capacities of public institutions so that they have the skills and resources to understand, oversee, shape, and engage with artificial intelligence and other transformative technologies. And we must come together around a global digital compact to avoid fragmentation, safeguard human rights, and ensure technology is a force for human well-being, solidarity, and progress." End of quote. In conclusion, I commend the organizers for bringing us together in this hybrid space to explore the path toward the internet we truly want, a digital landscape that empowers all people, fosters innovation, and upholds the highest standards of online safety and security. Today's gathering is a testament to Rwanda's unwavering commitment to creating an inclusive, empowered, and sustainable digital future. The journey ahead will require collaboration, innovation, and dedication to build the internet we want for every Rwandan. Let us embrace the transformative power of the internet to shape a brighter, more connected future where every individual in Rwanda has the opportunity to thrive and contribute to the nation's prosperity. As the United Nations, we stand shoulder to shoulder with Rwanda, supporting its efforts to harness the potential of emerging technologies for the betterment of the society. Together, we will shape a brighter, safer, and more inclusive digital future. I urge everyone to actively engage in this forum and to share your insights and collaborate towards realizing the internet we want. Let us be the architects of a digital world that benefits us all, leaving no one behind. Thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you all a productive and inspiring discussion through this annual Rwanda Internet Governance Forum. Murakoze cyane.
Thank you, and I think Dr. Ozonio just set a tone for us today on our theme. He just mentioned a very commendable, if you allow me to reinforce or repeat, on Rwanda's efforts that has set the country as a beacon, but also a leader into leading the brighter future for us into the digital world. However, he mentioned a very critical point about internet accessibility. There will be no way we'll be talking about the internet governance, neither reinforcing the future of our continent, but also the capacity building of our country to lead us into the digital world where we need to be, without necessarily speaking about the accessibility or the accessibility to the internet. Next, we're going to have a panel. The title of the panel is Internet Access, Affordability, and Digital Services and Empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also a great and distinct honor to introduce our moderator for today and the panel. This is no other than Mr. Eugene Anangwe. Mr. Eugene Anangwe is a world-recognized journalist. He has a reputation that has followed him and has preceded him into this industry, and he's also a trailblazer in the media and landscape of the Eastern and Central Africa. Having made a significant impact into this industry, Anangwe currently holds an esteemed position in country manager of CNBC. It wouldn't have been any better to have led this panel other than Mr. Anangwe. If I may please welcome him on the stage, and he will welcome the panel. And our first panel, again, just reinforce and reiterate, this is going to be the Internet Access, Affordability, Digital Services, and Empowerment. You're welcome, Mr. Anangwe.
Mwaramutse. Mumeze neza? Shamuseka neza. Mwatsapye. Yeah? Can you just look at the person next to you, tell them good morning in your language. Just turn to them and tell them good morning in your language. I'll just give you 1 minute. There's a lot of Mwaramutse I'm hearing. What's going on? Huh? Yeah. Wonderful. I think also it's good to note that we are 3 days into a new month, and so I can't fail to tell you Happy New Month. So you can give them a high five, tell them we made it into August. Yeah? Do you have any August babies in the house? August babies, anybody their birthday in August? Hands up. Wonderful. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm saying this so that Jeff and the team can take note. I think we can have cake during tea break. All right? Courtesy of you guys. Anybody left-handed in the room? Left-handed? Lefties? I see at the back. Actually, August is also a month that is celebrating the left-handed people. I know you didn't know that. At least now you know. So if you're hearing this voice for the first time, if you're seeing me for the first time, my name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. I'm a broadcast journalist, and like Krista said, I manage CNBC Africa here in Rwanda as the country manager, but I'm also a passionate person who drives conversations as a moderator. I have a talk show on Rwanda TV every Wednesday. It's called The Summit. And today, I'm honored to be here to moderate this interesting conversation that is around internet access, affordability, and digital services and empowerment. But riding on the theme, the internet we want, empowering all people. And so I want to call my panelists who will be joining me right now. And I know I would have said free seating like Rwanda, but I'll dictate on this one. So you'll start sitting from the second chair from this one. So let me start off by bringing on set, and I want us to put our hands together for Charles Gahungu, who's the General Manager, ICT Regulation at RURA. Let's give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I always say until he gets on set. Let's give him more round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Karibu hapa. Over here, this one. Thank you so much. Also joining us is none other than Mr. Alexis Kaveja, who's the CEO, Liquid Telecom. Let's give him a round of applause. Energy, yes, until he gets here. Wonderful. All right. And I want to appreciate Anne Delaporte, who's the Monitoring, Evaluation, and Learning Specialist at ISOC Foundation. She's amazing because she's helped us not to have a manel. We're going to have a panel. Thank you very much, Anne, for accepting to be part of this. And of course, Israel Bimpe, who's the CEO, Irembo. Let's give him a round of applause as he joins us on set. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Eugene Anangwe. So, mics are on. So let us start this conversation. Thank you so much. I was very deliberate when I mentioned the issue of having a manel. A manel, in definition, is a conversation which is just all men only. But this is a panel. Thank you, Anne, for helping us have a panel. So I want us to kick off this conversation, and I know any moment from now the Honorable Minister will join us. And I wanted to start off from the aspect of the numbers that we have, especially when it comes to the internet accessibility in the country. We cannot speak about the internet we want and empowering all people before looking at the data, before understanding where we are. And some statistics that I was looking at, I know these numbers keep changing. And as of 2022, the country, Rwanda, hit 13 million plus in terms of the population. And as of January, 3.54 million users were actually able to access internet. The penetration was at 26.3% at that time. But this means that 9.9 million people were not online, they were offline. And I want to start with you, Charles Gahungu, as the regulators, as the people who are actually either giving us a carrot or a stick for the players in the industry. What do this number tell you? What do you feel about this, even as we embark on this conversation of the internet we want and accessing it and empowering everyone? Go ahead.
Thank you, Eugene. First, I would like to thank the organizers of this forum. It is very, very important to discuss about the internet we want, specifically in Rwanda. In terms of the numbers you just mentioned, it clearly showed that we still have a long way. We still have some work to do. We still have some gaps. Unless if you could say that it is 100%, then everyone will be celebrating. But since there is a gap, a difference, truly speaking, it shows that there are still a way, there are still some gap, and we have to work hard to make sure that this gap is filled.
Yeah. And if we're talking about this gap, Alexi, if you can also share with us, because you are among the people who are providing the internet, and for some time there's been a notion that there's been monopoly, and that monopoly has made it difficult for costs to go down. And recently we've been seeing in the headlines telcos announcing that they are now providers of 4G and 4G plus and all that. Talk to us a bit about what these numbers make you feel, first of all, as major players on the aspect of providing that service and what you're doing from behind the scenes that probably we have not been able to know that you'd like us to know today?
Good morning, everybody. I think it's an interesting question because as like telcos who are involved and into that, because we have to lay the infrastructure, is very important to us. But we can't talk about the internet, affordability, access, without looking at what actually involves that, what actually involved in the whole process, which you can call the value chain, but internet, if we go back maybe 10 years, since let's say 2013, where we were as a country, because liquid intelligent technology started in 2013. There was an issue, just to give a picture where we were and where we are, so that we can appreciate the work we have done, not only just liquid, but other telecos and ISPs and MNOs in the country. So, you know, internet, we can't talk about internet without international connectivity.
Yeah.
Right, so international connectivity is very important.
Just hold on. I want us to appreciate the Honorable Minister. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much for making it for this session. Carry on, Alexis.
Yes, and we can't talk about internet without really looking at international connectivity, because that's access, you know, to the global internet ecosystem. So back in the time, so that drastic decrease of internet price has been driven mainly by investments, because investments in terms of international links, mainly the capacity itself. You know, if you look when we started almost 10 years ago, liquid, if I can take an example as liquid, we had about 20, almost 200 Mbps internet capacity shared by all our customers.
Yeah.
But now that capacity has grown to almost 100 gig.
Yeah.
But if you look at, it's not only the capacity itself, but it's also the reliability of the internet service. So we need to have backup links towards the international connectivity to ensure that the service is reliable. But that's one aspect of international connectivity. But you need to also to look at the access part.
Yeah.
So now that we have the internet connectivity in the country, how do we make sure that that internet is accessible to everybody?
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, the different access networks comes in. There's fixed internet connectivity, fixed infrastructure, there's wireless infrastructure. There we talk about 3G, 4G now, that will come and, bring connectivity to the end user in different forms. I think that's what I can say.
Right. We'll come back to unpack some of those numbers that you've mentioned, but let me bring in Anne here. Anne, when you sit and listen to this numbers conversation, what is it that we're missing on, even as we talk about the data that we see, with the long-term and overall goal of ensuring that no one is left behind? As you do your monitoring and evaluation, what are the missing links that you'd want the players in this room today, listening to you, to go back home with and to think critically around if we want to achieve the internet that we want?
Thank you very much for having me here, Eugene, and everybody else. I just want to briefly mention who we are as a foundation, because before going into your question, we are a recent foundation, not everybody will know us. We started in 2019 as a support foundation, ISOC, to tackle these challenges and monitor and evaluate the grants we're giving them. So what we, for example, in Rwanda, we work with the Rwanda chapter on a program to increase connectivity. When we give grants to our grantees, we ensure that we want to increase knowledge and skills, which is very important. So it's like, who is getting this knowledge, ensuring that for example, our Rwanda chapter is working on an initiative called Internet for Education. So they train teachers and headmasters to learn how to use internet and to use ICT in general. So here we're We also like work with them to see whether this is the right training approach, and we fund them to assess their own work. What we realized recently is that the training they were given was for 3 days only, and actually we realized that 5 days was better, because that's the thing we want to monitor as well, is that digital skills, yes, how long, for whom, what are the initial skills that people have, and always improving the work we're doing. So
is actually what runs in the veins of Irembo. But I want to ask you, as you work towards providing the services you provide at Irembo, how is the aspect of inclusivity or ensuring inclusion, as Anne mentioned, you know, if you're talking about those who are offline, but we also need to break down who are they, the marginalized and all that. How is this of an issue that is giving you either sleepless nights or is making you sleep like a baby?
Thank you so much. First of all, I also want to appreciate the invitation, and it's great to be here. I think there are many ways we can speak about it, but I think inclusivity and trust are really the two things that make us do our job in the best way possible. And inclusivity also is based on affordability and accessibility. And in ways that we think about it is when we build the products that we build, is how do we ensure that it's available on multiple platforms? How do we ensure that it's not one to leave behind? And one of the things is how do we look at our platform from an inclusivity perspective? An example I can give you is the work that we are doing for people with visual impairment. Today, if you are using a screen reader, it's quite hard to navigate many of the websites that exist in the country. Engineering with our partners to remove, let's say, attachments or remove unnecessary steps or requirements so that it's quite easy to navigate and onboard citizens and any kind of citizen on our platform.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think it's a matter of being deliberate. You've got to want to do it. You've got to really put your mind and brain and purpose to do it. I want us to talk a bit about the numbers we had from Alex. I don't know if the Alex that he is or the Alex that he said he doesn't know, but he did mention one thing here, that the internet levels the playing field. But I'll add a caveat to that, but it can also create a wide divide. And I think we saw this during the COVID times. We saw those who could not access online, when the online classes were introduced, were missing out on education. And I want to come to, Charles, on this aspect. In terms of the regulation, what do you want? Because it's very rare that we find all the players on one platform, including the regulator. And they're here, seated here, listening to you. And I want the truth and nothing but the truth. What do you want from the players when it comes to how they behave on the aspect of inclusion in whatever they try to do, from the internal strategies and the output? What do you want from them?
Thank you, Eugen. Let me first try to highlight that this, if I can, to be able to work in very key. And then, of course, we understand they're in business, but they will do their bit.
Alexis, as a player yourself, I know many times and many conversations that we've had, players have always said, if the regulatory environment is not conducive, then it becomes difficult for us to deliver, including on the area of the internet we want and to empowering all. What is your wish list to the regulators, to the policymakers? We have the Honorable Minister here. She's listening. What is your wish list?
I think, thanks for the question. I think, let me pick from what Charles just mentioned. I think is the internet access affordability is a joint effort. It's a joint project from the policy level to also the telecoms and the other players. It cannot be achieved by a single entity.
Yeah.
It has to be a joint effort. So there's something he mentioned which is true and important about collaboration in terms of setting up those regulations. Because we always receive open access to them to share what is we think is the right way to drive the whole ecosystem forward to achieve the objectives. So being those policies, regulations, we given a platform to share our view so that we can shape those policies to meet the targets. But there's something we mentioned earlier as well about
But I'm still waiting for your wish list.
but I actually answered directly in terms of what there's access to the policymakers in terms of shaping the way the ICT industry.
So you want them to be more accessible?
Access, I think we have it. And there's no single regulation, I think, in actually the important regulations which are enacted or adopted without consultations from the telcos. I think we appreciate that, and we see that continuing, and it's very, very important. I want to mention something about the vision. If you in the COVID-19 pandemic times, I think the Liquid was the first operator to deploy what we call fiber to the home network. And I remember at the time, it was almost like 2015, that's when we started fiber deployment for targeting homes. And the uptake was really difficult because I think it was education and understanding that you really need to have internet connectivity, a decent high broadband internet connectivity. And when COVID happened, everybody requires to stay home and work from home. That's where we saw the demand actually increasing because people needed to work from home and continuing their productivity. So, and welcoming other telcos to be part of that infrastructure deployments, we saw other players coming in because you cannot do it alone. So, but we saw Kigali being well connected, but in now thinking about upcountry regions, so that they are not left behind in terms of fixed fiber connectivity.
Interesting. Honorable Minister, well done, because I think you've done a very good job. I didn't see her write anything because she's still waiting. Where's the wish list? Well done. Thank you. Anna, maybe you'll have something, a long list. When you listen to the players that you meet in your regulatory or observatory role, what is it that you hear from the ground in terms of what they want policy to help in order to enable us to have the internet we want and for all?
You're going to give me a wish list as well.
Yes, go ahead, yes.
No, I think it's very important. We support like small organization, bigger organization, but I think as Charles and I forgot your name, Alexis, mentioned, like collaboration is extremely important. So I think like for sustainability of all the work we do as grant makers, like we want other players, we want policymakers to join forces in seeing the efforts that are on the ground and invest in that. Like, I just want to mention an example. It's not about Rwanda, but we worked in Bangladesh. We actually worked with the telecom regulator on an initiative with one of our grantees, like to fill a gap that was existing. Our grantee developed parental guidance for safety online for children, and they had problem with distributing it. So working with the telecom regulator helped us like really scale this initiative at a national level and promote safe internet for all. So that's kind of like policy, collaboration that exists. We, as a foundation, also Internet Society, we work a lot on like community networks. We see that for community networks, like there's still a lack of buy-in for this, and insufficient training to maintain and repair connectivity networks, and really want also like a bit more support from government to go into that direction. And yeah, I think, what we hear on the ground, like over the last 3 days, we've been a lot into schools in the district and listening from people that are saying we need more ICT devices, we need more computers and so on. I know there's a lot of initiative, but that's what I hear from the ground as an observer of like teachers saying, yes, it's great, we're training people, but we need more people trained, we need more support on the ICT needs. So yeah.
Right. Interesting. Well done. Thank you so much. Israel, I don't know what I should ask you. Are you also going to provide a wish list? But for you, I want to add a line on that one, because on the issue of utilization, you know, government and other players put in a lot of resources on some of these channels, digital, but then you find that the utilization is sometimes not at the optimum or at the level that the level of investment is not equal to that. I heard that even for the agribusiness space, in formalizing or coming up with improved seeds, but farmers are not really taking in or uptake of that. Under 20% of them are actually taking it. For you, when these investments are done for access to government services coming online, what is your wish list in terms of both the users? What do you want also from the population, especially when these services are available? That's the line I want to add on that question for you.
Yeah, I think from a builder or an innovator's perspective, you usually don't ask of the user something. You build for their needs and you build for their capacity. I think the first thing to think about, and it comes back to what you mentioned earlier around the digital divide, it's to think about when we speak about digital literacy, I think there is another stage which is digital confidence, because as we are seated here, you can be very comfortable to send me 20,000 Rwandan francs, but you will not be comfortable to send me 2 million Rwandan francs, while Momo allows you to send up to 4 million. That means you are not confident enough to use the full extent of your digital capability. Maybe very few of us would go online and order food or order clothes or order something, right? So I think there is that ability to consume the content and what is online for you to be able to access it. And the way that we see it is because the issue is we don't have enough content. And when you think about it, the applications that you have on your phone, the tabs that are open on your computer, there is absolutely very little that is built locally. There is very little that is in your local language, and there is very little that is built with your context, with what you interact with on a day-to-day basis, right? And so, you know, when you are online and you are trying to print something or you are trying to, to download something, the printer is an image of what someone sees all the time. When they see it, they know exactly that it's printing. But what is our version of printing, for example? So if I transform it in an image, someone who's not probably literate can directly see what I'm telling them. And so I think when we don't have the right form of content, it diminishes the ability for people to consume. But we believe that we are one of the few builders who build in the local language. Our website and our platform and our services are fully available in the local language. Number two, the user experience. We try to make sure that it's locally contextualized. So when someone open their smartphone and go on our platform, the way they navigate it in Kinyarwanda or the way they navigate that is really locally, is fully contextualized to their day-to-day environment. And we do a lot of user research in that space. And so what it allows us to do and what it has taught us is there is a need for a lot more of us who are building local content. And I think the wish list is now, how do we enable the builders to do that? I think they spoke about the infrastructure and the investments that are done for the consumption side of the internet, but there is also the building side of the internet. And that's where we benefit as well, right? When you look at the back end of Irembo, there is the payment rails, there is the different integrations, there is all of the things that happen in the back end. Those are what enable the different people to build for the local context. So I think, as we think about the theme today, the internet we want, and as we think about digital inclusivity, is how are we enabling the different people who are building to build for locally and really contextualize the content instead of just importing as much of it as possible and consume the internet that's not ours, if you want.
Right. Interesting. Wonderful. I want to remind us that there are microphones amongst the audience. So we will be able to open up for you to ask any question. You've listened to the panelists. You may be having an input you want to put or a question specifically to any of the panelists. So feel free to get ready for that particular session. And I want to ask a question on infrastructure because Charles, you did mention earlier on your wish is to see more collaboration. And we have seen for quite some time the aspect of working in silos, the competitive nature of the business. So people decide, I want to start providing service X, so I'll have to invest in the infrastructure that we could ordinarily share with the other player. Talk to us a bit about how the regulator is facilitating this area of infrastructure sharing for players who say we want to collaborate on a particular service for the people.
Thank you, Eugene. When it comes specifically on the infrastructure deployment, this is one of the area where, in reality, regulator has to intervene to assure that the investment, number one, is done effectively. As you know, if someone, let's say, have to build his own tower, and the other one comes also build another tower just next, let's say 50 meters even. So, first of all, this is going to create a chaos in terms of infrastructure, as well as even the smartness of the city, even in the country. It will also make the service to be more expensive. You can imagine if you have to invest, let's say, more than 100,000 capex on your tower, which will also cost on the some other thousands on the OPEX. The other one build the same tower nearby. At the end of the day, what is going to happen for you to break the even? You have to increase the cost of the service. So what we are enforcing is to assure that the infrastructure sharing is taking place so that the deployment is done effectively. It really helps, number one, to bring down even the cost of the service. Yes, from the operators, sometimes they may not will exactly to collaborate much. That's where the regulator has to intervene and make sure that you put a kind of threshold to guide the competition. Secondly, it makes the infrastructure to be deployed, if I can say, in an effective way, specifically where there is no infrastructure yet. You can easily, if someone is trying to bring the fiber, install the fiber in a certain place. So as the first operator, we make sure that you are putting the right appropriate type of infrastructure in terms of even capacity. Let's say you are installing a fiber of 5 kilometers from the main road to the new estate house. So we make sure that you are putting like some spare ducts, as well as even the size of the cable. Instead of just laying, let's say, 4 cores of fiber, we make sure that the minimum fiber you have to deploy in that place, let's say, is 24. This is to be ready for infrastructure sharing, so that the other operator, when we want to extend its services in the same area,
they just plug
and play. It doesn't have to go and incur again, let's say, the civil works. Sometimes you have also to, let's say, to start digging and cutting again the roads, which are not necessary. Then we have to repair the roads. So that's why we enforce the infrastructure sharing, and we put some minimum in deployment in advance, so that whenever the other operator want to deploy, he doesn't have to start from scratch. Just a simple example, for the new operators which has come to the market, just consider the GVA or Canal Box. Last year, they extend their infrastructure to Rubavu, which is more than almost 200 kilometers from Kigali. You could imagine if he has to install its own fiber from Kigali to Rubavu. That will be a very huge investment. He has to use the existing infrastructure, both on the the main link as well as even for redundancy.
That's interesting. And I want to hear from Alexis. He says that the players don't seem to really collaborate more in terms of the wish, in terms of how they would wish to see. What are the things that you feel need to be done to spur that industry collaboration?
Right. I think good effort has been done already in terms of the infrastructure sharing, specifically for the access and fiber lease and tower lease across the country. And that has helped the operators, not only as actually all operators, to be able to deploy their solutions quite quickly and also in a more sustainable way in terms of business. Yeah. But I think there is more work and which is going to be enabled by the new data protection law, which is in place, in terms of how do you enable the content developers and other solution developers to deploy their solutions. Yeah. That's on basically on digital infrastructure, which needs to be developed, because I think we're still lagging behind in terms of digital infrastructure. And Liquid, we've taken a project to deploy digital infrastructure. We have an Azure stack, a Microsoft Azure stack, deployed in the country. It's not only going to serve our services only, but it's also helping other individual developers and also operators. We've started onboarding some of the operators already, running some critical solutions already, fintech solutions on our platform. That policy in terms of infrastructure sharing, going towards the digital infrastructure sharing is also important, yeah. and that will spur development, because not only are you are complying with the regulations, but also it's more affordable because you don't have to host your services and data outside of the country, and you have the local support. Yeah. Because you know those who are hosting outside with the known hosting providers, you know, there is always a challenge in terms of connectivity, because connectivity to the platform hosted outside is sometimes difficult. There are those latencies and issues around the cost as well, which are being addressed by actually telcos investing in the local hosting platforms. But local hosting platforms should be really good solutions, because not only putting some servers and running a VM software to manage them won't be necessarily the adequate solution, because we've been doing that for a long time. So better to go for this known technology, because to guarantee security, because there are security standards which needs to be followed, yeah, for you to start providing hosting services.
Right. Israel and Anne, I'll come to you, but let me open the floor on the same question. So if we have any question, just raise your hand and address the question to any of the panelists, if there is a specific question to any of them. If it's a comment, it's also okay. If you want to appreciate what the work they're doing, it's also fine. It's also good. So just raise your hand up and a microphone will get to you. I see this a lot. Yeah, there you go. There's a mic over there. Just say your name and the institution and the question and the specific person you want to answer the question.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Eme Nionagise. I'm Managing Director at Amataz Technology Limited. Yeah. According to the key you have mentioned it on empowerment, I would like to ask you, how can private sector, I mean those ones who provide and empower trainings on ICT in a community, can be empowered even because one may have mentioned that there is insufficient trainings in the community, and then how those ones, individuals, private sector, can be empowered in even financial support to cover the gap of ICT. Yeah, thank you.
Right, interesting question. Maybe Charles, you want to say from a regulatory perspective, what do you demand of the players in terms of capacity building, knowledge sharing, and empowering communities?
Thank you so much. I do agree there is a role of the private sector in empowering the community and the public. Operators has to look at in another angle. They are providing service, earning some revenues, but they will be able to earn more if really the users are using their service at a maximum. And how to achieve that? It means users need some skills, requires some skills. They still have a gap to make sure that they can be able to maximize. So in that angle, I would really recommend that the private sector, as he just mentioned, the operators, to come up with different programs, not just feeling like this is the role of the government in the capacity building, education. So at the end of the day, they are also they will be also benefiting. If someone, let's say, is not aware how to use some social media tools, YouTubes and other things, so if you train them on how to use different technology tools, at the end of the day, they will need to use it. At the same time, they are consuming your bundles and data. So private sector, on my view, they can come up with different programs supporting the government as well as being involved really in the community.
Yeah, Alexis, you are one of the private sector people seated closest to Charles. And I'll ask you that question. What are you doing at Liquid on this?
It's very critical to educate the community in terms of how do you use effectively the available tools to improve your productivity, learn, and corroborate. So education is very important. The role of telecoms, not only Liquid, is to make sure that the available technologies are easy to use and also educate the end users on how to use it. But what we've started doing is mainly supporting the startup hubs. So where there are communities, different communities around, and we support them by availing those tools, not only just connectivity, but also those digital solutions. There are work we have with ICT Chamber to see how we can avail the hosting platform we have for the startup hubs to develop, test their applications and be able to deploy them at a certain level which they can be able to afford. But also there is that gap which I think is obvious, also to go beyond the startup hubs and go to the communities. How do we approach them and teach them how to use those solutions?
Yeah. Anna, I think you come in on this very easily on the aspect of empowering communities. How do you see this coming in? What are the resources available at the foundation that probably if someone wants to actually empower communities, they could tap into? But also, what do we lose by not taking this very seriously as private sector?
We're not private sector, but I think the question is really interesting because there are like two levels to it. There's one is about like what I was saying, so insufficient training was about like training to maintain connectivity, maintaining the infrastructure. And like at the foundation, we have like sustainable technical community grants that we provide for like building this this community, but also training on training materials for people for the communities and anyone interested to do that. We have grantees like the Mali chapter, for example, is providing training to women in ICT as well, and it's been like extremely successful results on how like building the skills, but for the infrastructure level. The other levels is like training for the communities, for those who don't have access yet, or like for those who don't know how to use internet. And I just want to mention, because I found it quite interesting, and it's just an anecdote, but we saw a school, I think it was yesterday, or the day before yesterday, and we're really happy to see that the investment we did by starting like this digital skills training, which is like 3 days and so on, there was a bit of a spark for the school leaders saying, well, you know what, now we want to actually train people on Irembo. So starting with the school approach and like slowly like also enable the community to use the platforms that are there, because you're like working on the background and stuff, but then it's how do you bring that to the community? So making this link, that's how the private sector can come in and like building this link by us providing a bit of the digital skills, the initial seed, I would say, the initial connectivity, and then having other players coming in with their own digital solution, with like other training, other digital initiatives.
Yeah, right, Israel. And it's actually our time now to take the closing remarks, and you'll be able to add on your points on that but specific question. What is the internet that you want? If I was to ask you that question as you add your closing remarks.
All right, I'll reflect on that at the end. I think to speak on that question, we have 3 broad categories of stakeholders that we engage with in the community. I think there are citizens or users. There are agents. We have about 7,000 of active agents every month across the country. And then there are also government officers who approve different services on our platform. And there are about 2,000 of those. And those are État civil, sector land managers. So they are really at the lowest level of governance and government structure in the country. And for each of those, we have a way that we go about building their capacity and understanding how we can empower them. And we have goals on how we can work with other players in the community and not just doing it on ourselves. I think the first is, of course, for citizens, it's really important. You've seen us in a big campaign this past few months, Dikorere, where we are really going out in the community and using different channels and avenues to build the capacity and the understanding and the confidence of citizens to engage with our services on their own, or even when they are getting the support from an agent or someone else, they have at least that first level of awareness that we want them to have. For agents, these are entrepreneurs on the internet, right? They are helping you apply for Irembo, they are helping you buy electricity, they are helping you buy, a subscription to TV. So they are internet entrepreneurs. And we also work with them to really empower them and build their capacity so they can do more. And the third group is usually the government officers. And government officers often are not, when you see that more and more services are going online, there is always that fear that we are going out of our job. And agents also, when they see more and more people using things on their own, they're like, oh, we will lose our job. But essentially what we do for those, recently we introduced a model for our training for government officers around digital transformation. And essentially it talks about who do you become in a new world that's digital first. And that allows them to do a more introspective approach to their work, which allows them to actually embrace digitization of their work rather than feeling that it's replacing them or taking away their job. And they find multiple ways to be even more productive, to grow and leverage digital technologies in different avenues. So, but in the future, I think as we scale this kind of work and as we learn as much as possible, we've been engaging and connecting with many community leaders around the capacity building and the training aspects that we can do, and we hope to extend that work beyond just doing it all on our own. I think the internet we want is, I think we stand for an internet which is, we say that we build software for trust. And essentially, and it's something we didn't talk much about here, but when we say that we build software for trust, I think Irembo in its essence is deepening the trust with government. And usually when it was paper-based, when it was going to the office, and you put that online, you increase the efficiency. But when you remove that face-to-face interaction, you are removing something that was so trustworthy. And when you change people's behavior to trust that the internet, they will get the same service without seeing a government officer, without seeing the signature of a minister or something. So you are building for that trust. And for you to sustain that trust, the platform has to stay reliable. For you to sustain that trust, there shouldn't be data breaches. For you to sustain that trust, there shouldn't be hacks or any form of fraud that is built on top of your platform. So that's why it's really important for us. That's how we see data privacy, for example, and data protection. It's because that it allows us to sustain the trust that we build for and establish between citizens and government or different institutions that serve them. And I think my wish and what the internet I look for is how do we deepen that trust across the ecosystem. Thank you.
Interesting. And what is the internet that you want in closing and your parting shot?
To my colleague here, safe, trustworthy.
Yeah.
We're putting more and more emphasis on trust, and safety. Many of our grantees are doing a lot of work on safety these days all across the world. We have grantees all across the world, and it's coming more and more frequent. We want an internet for everyone that people can trust and be safe online.
Right.
For everybody.
Right. Alexis?
I think trust they're mentioning is riding on the steps the telcos and are making to invest in the right solutions, making sure that the platforms which are deployed, or solutions which are deployed, are earning that trust. So Irembo Trust will ride on infrastructure which is trustworthy, and I think telcos should be investing in those solutions which are important for them to run their important applications.
Yeah.
But the internet I want is where we reach a level where you've seen where voice has become. I haven't seen for quite some time somebody asking, can you give me some credits for coding? Because we reached a level where it's affordable. Coding is as affordable. There are those bundles which are enabling actually everybody to be able to connect. But we want also the same to be for internet, where it's affordable but also reliable. The quality of service is very important, so that whenever you're placing a call or you want to access a content, it's going to happen.
Right.
And that's the level of internet I want.
Right. Charles?
Yes, the internet I want, I'll summarize it into two aspects. The one from the operators and the other responsibilities of the consumers and users. Then if really we all achieve, I'm sure we will have the internet we want. On the side of operators, I really want to request and emphasize to assure the quality of service. The quality of service as well as the support to the citizens. We still have, if we talk about digital literacy, even for those who we think they are somehow aware, they have that kind of basic or education, don't be surprised that if you ask someone here, how is your internet at your office?
Yeah.
What is the capacity you are supposed to get? How are you monitoring if you really are getting what you are supposed to get, what you pay for? Yeah. I'm not talking about the citizens. I'm talking about the educated segment. So we want to build, we want to make sure that operators are really providing the quality of service, but at the same time, the end users, who are the consumers, they should understand. If you are going to sign a contract, challenge them. Yeah. Make sure that at the end of the month, you are paying for the service which you get. Yeah. Since we have now a kind of a competitive environment, at least let's say within cities, you have different options. let's say as of today, we are talking about 3 4G providers. So if you are not satisfied with this provider, you have to make sure that you are able to challenge him in terms of quality of service, then move to another. This is a business. You are supposed to pay for what you are getting. But at the same time, the operators have that kind of responsibility. If really you are offering a service, make sure that you are following to assure the user satisfaction. In that case, then being the service provider, being the user, we will all be happy, and then everyone will really feel like this is the internet we want.
Right. The police have 911 in case of any emergency, in case of anything you want to report. What number do we call RURA to report the service providers that are not giving us the service we paid for? Take your pen and paper now. What's the number?
Yes. Let me first explain on the process. The process is, number one, if you are not satisfied, call the operator's help desk, which you already know. Let's say 100.
They'll ask you, niwe ushaka mu Kinyarwanda kandarimwe.
So that is the first, if I can call the help desk. Everyone should be aware. Then you understand. Once you are not satisfied, we have different platform. You can go through tweet to Rura. You can reach to our numbers. Different platforms. I mean, most of cases we are getting, they are more now on tweet.
On Twitter.
Basically.
So we go to Twitter.
We go to Twitter.
And
Because
I need
it
the internet to go on Twitter, and it's not working.
No, I'm talking about the quality of service.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm talking in case when you don't have internet, definitely you can't go to the Twitter.
Okay.
But I'm talking about the overall
Quality
service
of service.
satisfaction.
Okay.
You have different platforms.
Yeah.
We have our website where you can get different phone calls.
Yeah.
So when you are not satisfied from the service being or supported by the operators,
Yeah.
you have the info. Basically, if you go to the Rura website, there are a lot of channels where you
raise your
can
complaint.
reach Rura, and then you will get the support.
Okay. And like we said, it's not only Rura's work.
Yes.
It's not only the players here, it's all of us. If we want to make it a better space and a better environment for all of us to enjoy the available internet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to the panelists. Wonderful. It is not easy being here. It is not easy at all to actually be able to sustain this conversation for the almost 1 hour we've done. And so I want to appreciate all of you for making time and for sharing your insights on this particular issue. As I let them go, I want to ask a very important question, because we heard from the speeches earlier on, leveraging on the power of AI. And this is a debate I've been having with people close to the spaces I'm in. If you found your employee that you've given an assignment using ChatGPT to do the assignment, would that be an offense? Don't answer now. Think about it. Would you be encouraging the use of AI, or would you be stifling the use of AI? Let's think about all these things so that we can be able to foster a better environment of the internet use, a lot of ethics around that. So as always, my name is Eugene Anangwe. I want to say thank you so much for listening. I want to bring in Krista. Let's give a round for Krista as she comes. She's doing an amazing job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eugene. I wish I could use the same intonation with Anangwe, but unfortunately, I don't think I could make that. But thank you to every single person. Thank you for the great contribution. I've noted a couple of key points, which Anangwe have already just led us into the next conversation that we'll have after the break. But before we move forward, some of the points you just mentioned were about the internet connectivity and the capacity building. There's internet for education that De La Porte has mentioned. There's availability of services by Rembo, and they're working towards the new availing these services on the new app. We've spoken about the proper laws of the industry, And now there's now the AI and the ethics around it. So I think we have a lot to discuss further, and we look forward for your contribution as we move forward. But dear ladies and gentlemen, before we move forward, today we have a unique privilege of hearing the insights from an honorable guest who holds not only just the face about the face of innovation and technology of our country, but she lies on her shoulders the entire coordination about the national policies, the programs related information, technology, communication. I think we've just seen how without the collaboration, we cannot make it anywhere. And we have more to go. We have more collaboration to foster. And this is a person who holds this on her shoulders. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the privilege with us today to welcome Honorable Minister Paula Ingabire. It is a great pleasure, and we would like to welcome her on stage to deliver her speech. And we also want to learn more. I think Kabeja just mentioned how we still have a road to travel, but we have come from very, very far. So this is someone who has seen this whole entire journey and still has within her power to move us forward with all our collaboration. So Honorable Minister, if we could please welcome you and learn from you as well.
Good morning. So I probably should start by Anangwe's question. If someone was using ChatGPT, what would you do? I think I would be very excited, and I must say I've had incidences where my teams use ChatGPT to do talking points. So now, because I know that, I have decided, and that's why I asked Alex, I want to come and do the remarks towards the end after the first panel, so that at least I can mix the ChatGPT inputs with whatever I had from the panel. But it's an honor to be here with all of you this morning, and I wanted to start by thanking every one of you for making it here today. I think this week particularly has been quite an interesting week for all of us as the ICT fraternity, from the Cybertech conference now into the Internet Governance Forum. And I should say that for the rest of the year, we're probably going to have quite a set of events and platforms where we can continue to engage, not just as the local ecosystem, but also within the region and internationally. So thank you very much for making the time today, despite all the different demands that we are placing on your schedule. I also want to thank the Rwanda Internet Community and Technology, RICTA, for bringing together this gathering on an annual basis, but also thank them that they are able to convene the upcoming East African edition in September this year in Kigali. So congratulations that you're able to bring the regional summit here, but also congratulations that you've been able to, curate these conversations on an annual basis, allowing for us to really sit down as stakeholders, as partners, to reflect on what are those pertinent challenges on a daily basis that we deal with from the different facets of our responsibilities, but also allowing for us to think about the collaborative power that we can pull together to solve for these problems. I think the panelists did a great job. I think everyone echoed the fact that you cannot do this alone. And so there is power in partnership, there is power in collaboration, and that's why such platforms and events bring us together to have these conversations. I think what's also very important is that when we sit to have these conversations, let's not just speak amongst ourselves as players. It's important that we're thinking, if you had citizens in the room, what would they be telling us? Once we understand that or reflect on that, then we're perhaps in a better position to think about how we solve for many of these challenges. For some of them, we may not find the solutions overnight. It's progressive, but for others, I think with the collective power of coming together, we should be able to find solutions in a faster manner. And for the last 17 years, this Internet Governance Forum has served as a platform where all the players will come together to talk about the policy matters related to the internet, but it also offers a space where we can have an open and equitable dialogue about some of these issues. We've seen that the unity of the internet has brought so many positive effects, and we must strive to maintain and strengthen the positive effects that we see. So I just want to pause here and reflect on this year's theme, which is the internet we want, empowering all people. And for me, as I listen to all the panelists and I try to put myself in the shoes of every citizen, I think the internet that we want, the internet that our citizens want, is an internet that is a basic right for everyone. And what does that mean? It means that it must be accessible for them, it must be affordable for them, it must be relevant in terms of content and how it empowers them, but at the same time, it must be trusted and secure. So everything that we do, if we're not looking at these four themes in accessibility, affordability, relevance, trust, and security, if we miss any of those, then that is why we continue to see a very big gap between the usage and the coverage statistics that we continue to see. And so I'm hoping that what we can continue to think about is how do we, whether you're a telecom operator, an ISP, a policymaker, the regulators, for some of you who are providing the content that rides on this internet infrastructure, you're a device company, how do we ensure that all of these four things are really taken care of when we're delivering this internet? Now, while connectivity is very important, I think connectivity in itself is not sufficient. And so that's why we've had conversations this morning around why we need to ensure that our citizens have the right and relevant digital literacy skills, how we are promoting penetration of devices. We've always said when you go out and train people and they don't have a device, there's always going to be a disconnect. At least when someone has a device, there's some level of self-teaching and learning that happens. And so part of the efforts that we're putting in place as the government of Rwanda, beyond ensuring that we have last mile connectivity, is also ensuring that most of our citizens have smart devices, but we also know that a device on its own is not enough. We want to make sure that for many of you that are building content, that are building applications, you can do that so that it creates the right value proposition for these devices and the internet. Now, I know Anangwe pushed for everyone to send a wish list. It didn't come, but in the tech language, DM it anytime. I'll be happy to consider that one. So on that note, I think one of the other things I wanted to emphasize is that all of these efforts that we've heard of from the different players are going to be futile if we neglect the governance of data and the safeguarding of privacy. Data plays a critical role in ensuring that we have relevant and meaningful connectivity. And so while Rwanda has made significant steps in this direction, putting in place the data protection and policy law, as well as the data protection office, it is vital that this data is used for innovation sharing, but is done in a manner that enhances information accuracy. And this is why this is a very important priority for us. So striking the right balance to maintain trust while encouraging innovation and cooperation is paramount. And so I hope this is going to be the core of the discussion today. I know it's been the core of the conversation that we've had over the last 2 days with the Cybertech Africa Summit, which I hope many of you got an opportunity to attend. And so I really encourage that we seize this opportunity to share our ideas, to share best practices, but also to think through how we can preserve a secure, reliable, and sustainable digital space for everyone. I think for me, my biggest call to action for all of us today is to put our shoes in this, is to put ourselves in the shoes of the different citizens in every part of Rwanda, and try to understand if they were here, if you were to speak on their behalf, what kind of internet would they want? And once we have that picture, and that's very clear for all of us, then we can chart the way forward on how we achieve the internet that we want for our people. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And thank you to everyone. I know earlier Eugene had mentioned something about having a cake for the August babies. Before we move forward, I think we have more conversation to foster right after, but allow me to first welcome everyone to take a break. Hopefully we're going to have that cake, Eugene. Thank you immensely to everyone. However, due to the sensibility of time that we have, we're just going to have a few minutes, 15 minutes. Honorable Minister just opened the gap to more questions. We talked about AI. We have a panel about a presentation about AI later on. So welcome every single person to please walk yourself back to the room because we have more to nourish ourselves with later on. So you can please take your time. There's going to be coffee, juice, refresh yourself, some refreshments, and we'll see back ourselves back in the room at 11:45. Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again. If we please would kindly allow you, request you to take your seats one more time. You're welcome to join. Kindly asking the team as well in protocol to help us get everyone back in. Thank you so much. I've not got a chance myself to check what we have, but I hope we have got the cakes and the drinks and the coffees, hopefully. If not, we'll look forward to having the lunch and the birthday cakes. So welcome once again. As we look forward for the team to help us to have everyone back in, everyone that is standing in the corridor, kindly. But before we move forward, I think we have mentioned quite a lot of points. If I could go back to the speech that we have had with the UN resident, he mentioned something about the capacity building. He mentioned about the emerging technologies that we were working towards. I think with emerging technology, we're looking at a couple of number of points. We have the AI, as we just mentioned, and now we're thinking about the policies and ethics around it. But before we move forward, I think we have more than a great speaker, who is Mrs. Josephine. Josephine is working with RISA, who is also the organization that governs most about it. So we look forward to learning more. So we have up next two presentations. We're going to first start with the key one, which is going to be the emerging technologies, online safety and security, that is going to lead us now into the policies around the AI. If you would kindly allow me to welcome with a round of applause one more time. Now, I know that you have the energy. I know the sugar has kicked in. If you could please help me to welcome Mrs. Josephine. You're welcome.
Thank you, Krista. Good morning, everyone. I think we are having few colleagues still coming in, but in the interest of time, we will get started. So as she mentioned, I'm Josephine Nyiranzeimana. I work with RISA. RISA is the Rwanda Information Society Authority, and I'm serving as the Government Chief Information Officer. So today, I'll be talking about emerging technologies, online safety, and security. Just for some who may not know, under RISA, we have two offices, one in charge of information and another one in charge of innovation. So I would like to let you know that I worked with one of my colleagues, Dr. René Kavarisa, who's leading on emerging technologies from the Division of Innovations. So we will be covering interesting topics. And just as a disclaimer, this is not going to be like a teaching session. I really hope it's going to be a discussion where I'm trying to touch on some of the key aspects of emerging technologies and specific technologies of interest in this Internet Governance Forum today. And I really hope from the audience we will have more inputs or additions to the discussion just for us to make sure as we progress in adopting technology as a country, as a society, we are able to achieve what we want from the very theme of this Internet Governance Forum, the internet we want, and getting to really empower Rwandans. So maybe a bit of background about RISA. It's a government entity operating under the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. We are the implementing agency of the Ministry of ICT and Innovation. RISA was established in 2017, and we are located in Kachiru, Telecom House. So for further information, we have our website and social presence on social media. So you can know more about what we do, our team, and key projects we are working on. But as part of our mission, we are set to implement ICT policies and strategy to fast-track socio-economic growth of Rwanda. We do also have a mandate to expand access to affordable ICTs. Our role also involves accelerating community development through mainstreaming of ICTs in other sectors. I believe we have some chief digital officers from various sectors in the room, and we do collaborate with them a lot to make sure the various sectors of our economy are adopting technology and using it to properly transform and advance in the digital era. We also do coordinate programs that increase skills, digital skills. You may have heard of Digital Ambassadors Program, but we also are involved in skills development at higher levels to make sure we have enough capabilities and capacity needed to build the knowledge economy for Rwanda. Yes, we do also works around innovation, ecosystem strengthening, while coordinating projects and implementing initiatives targeted to improve ICTs as adding values to the different daily activities from business to individual life. So I wanted to start the discussions around emerging technologies from a policy perspective, where from 2019, the Ministry of ICT and Innovation has set a strategy for emerging technologies for Rwanda. So the strategy has key principles, as you see on the screen. One is around positioning Rwanda as the innovation or emerging technology hub. We want to also be able to propel the application of emerging technologies for the social and economic development of Rwanda. Through this strategy, we also look at preparing the grounds for emerging technologies. Here, we're looking at both human and infrastructure-wise, having a ground that is ready to actually receive, adopt, and make good use of emerging technologies. But as mentioned by previous speakers, and Honorable Minister, trust is of very high importance, hence protection of citizens, making sure that institutions and our values as a society are not negatively impacted by emerging technology is also a key aspect looked at in this strategy. Through this strategy, there are a lot of emerging technologies that were identified to seem or to have good potential to, one, allow Rwanda to leverage those technologies for our economic development, but also to be like strategic ones, depending on the different advancements that are already in place. Hence, when we look at things like artificial intelligence, robotics, drones, virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, Internet of Things, 3D printing, these are all technologies that we have already initiatives ongoing around them. But for sure, we have more coming, some that we know, some that we don't. But for the purposes of this discussion, I'll talk about the 5 that were highlighted. The very first is the quantum computing. So there are a lot of definitions around what this is, but simply for us to be able to have a conversation around it. When we talk about quantum computing, we're looking at how the quantum physics was leveraged to enhance digital technology development. And today, we have a way that computers are helping to, or are helped by the quantum physics to process data in a more complex way, where we are able to compute faster and more efficiently. So there's new terminologies, such as the quantum bits, and these are really changing the game in the computing industry, where it's no longer 0 or 1, we have something in between. So we start talking about superpositions or entanglement. And when we look at where this is applying, we have many industries being affected by or being empowered by quantum computing, including the artificial intelligence area, where computers are getting some brain and can actually contribute, bringing new ideas, not what is predicted or prescribed by the human behind. And this really is adding value in many of the existing industries. But maybe to be specific in terms of safety and cyber security, we have an advancement that is, I'll say, huge in terms of value that is brought by the quantum computing, where we can combine the machine learning and encryptions and cryptography to get what is now called the quantum cryptography, where you are able to encrypt in a manner that is, I'll say, harder or difficult to decrypt. We have trends of where this is really yielding some fruits. And when it comes to detecting frauds, quantum cryptography is playing an important role in optimizing or even proofing the security systems. Because if previously you could guess if it's a 1 or 0, having something in between, it's going to be harder now. From 2 choices, you now have to choose from 3 or more. So very quickly, we have metaverse. This is also another emerging technology. Well, what is it about? A lot. So it's interesting how we are getting in the digital world. And I like to say that it's not just one world. So with metaverse, we are introduced to a type of digital reality where virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality are creating various sensory elements, let me read as it's written, to make experience more enjoyable or challenging. So when we see people playing, games in the virtual environment, a 3D universe, as you see, S at the end is really big and bold because there might be more than one universe, and we're talking about assets and services in that particular environment or those particular environments. We are seeing ways to transact in those worlds with non-fungible tokens. And then we are seeing key industries to be impacted, from finance to entertainment to fashion to smart cities and many more. So this is also something that brings challenges to our way of living or even our way of understanding technologies and how it could impact our lives. We've heard of Web 3.0, where you can't just read or search for information. You actually get into where you want to search. So if I really want to see which country, let's say Australia, I just don't Google Australia. I can have a feeling of seeing what is in Australia, get a look of the streets, I don't know, the buildings there, the sea, and everything. So what does this mean in the Rwandan context? So I believe policies and regulations are challenged a lot, while catching up with such advancement is going to be a very tough race. Next, we want to talk about brain-computer interface. We've been interacting with technologies, tools, systems, in a more, I would say, interactive way, but there's like 2 individuals interacting. But now with computer-brain interface, the 2 may become one or can become one, where there's a direct channel between the human brain and the computer. So with this, we are able to design, and restore some functions. For instance, for a disabled person, if I don't have arms, there's a way now with a computer I can get the ability to be like having an arm through a computer or brain-computer interface. So this is really applied in many ways, but from the way it is enabling people to have better control of technologies or computers, it's serving a lot in the area of designing support for people with disabilities. We are able to monitor, aircrafts, robots, or other vehicles that normally with one human brain, it's not easy to or requires a lot of attention, but with such technology, we kind of are able to support the individual, the human behind the control of such aircrafts or even other kind of vehicles that are needing advanced knowledge. Actually, I wanted to also mention that we have a lot of opportunities to enhance performance of humans in many fields, leveraging the support of such technologies. And again, maybe talking about safety, you can imagine the day where the computers will now control the brain, where we started trying to make our brain controlling the computer. So the other emerging technologies we are talking about is synthetic biology. And this is an interesting one in regions where I would say research around creation of new say biological systems, new devices is still possible. Why am I saying this? When you look at how our agriculture is done, there's little or limited automation. When you look at the productions or manufacturing industries in our local context, we have a big opportunity, but talking about this specific emerging technology, we are able to get assistance from computers to design or construct new systems, new devices from whatever we have in existence, making them better. And the purpose really is to use them in a way that would add value to human beings or our daily business. However, as we talk about safety again, there's always room for challenges that could really negatively affect such good innovations. So the applications are very many, but when we look into the medicine area, energy, food and nutrition, manufacturing, therapeutics, I think there's huge opportunities to create new drugs, medicine for very, I would say, many diseases that we are not able to research on and have solutions for, but through technology, those kind of efforts could be enhanced and actually fast-tracked. Now, the last one is around robotics. I believe we know what a robot is, but now when we talk about advanced robotics, having a robot with a mind like the ChatGPT, do you imagine what that entails? Yeah, so the robots are learning, and actually even getting, in some cases, ahead of the human. So if they can learn from our behaviors, with the power they have, they don't get tired, they are efficient, they are faster. So I'll pause it there. Just, you know, for us to think about what it could entail in terms of safety, but from the application side, we have a lot of benefits. I remember once I visited the Fly Zoo Hotel in Hangzhou, a hotel where there's no staff member. You enter, everything is done by robots. It's quite interesting, but very threatening again. But in a country like ours, what does that mean? Actually, I think I'm done talking about emerging technologies. So I want us to come back here in Kigali, parking, in this room. What does all these, mean? Do we see them applicable in our fields? How long do we think it will take, for us to start facing issues of safety around us being able to use these technologies? And really, I think it's not that far, because the reality is when an innovation happens, it's out there, but it's also here, directly or indirectly. So how prepared are we? Or what should be done? That's my question to you. So there's a lot of concerns when we talk about digital technologies in general, but also the specific emerging technologies we just gone through, mainly the data privacy concerns, cybersecurity threats. Imagine your brain-controlled computers being attacked and then having your arm started, doing things that you don't want the arm to do, or being locked away from your smart home. So ethical implications are also one of the challenges. What impacts would these bring on the job market, but also in the society in general? Well, so many things to be thought of. Maybe thought we could also look at the existing tips. Will they work with those kind of emerging technologies? We have, or we are aware of internet safety tips, using strong passwords, embedding multi-factor authentication, be cautious of links and attachments that are sent to our emails on phones, and avoid sharing sensitive information online. Now, these are what we're using now. With, say, the metaverse, will they apply? With the brain-controlled computer, will they apply? With quantum computing, will they apply? Last but not least, we need to put in place some measures. Yes, antiviruses, updates, security of our networks, data backup, data protection, privacy. But again, will they work with emerging technologies? Or what is the gap? What is missing? What could be done? And then, of course, the young ones, how do we protect them? So I want to pause here and open up for inputs, comments, additions. I think I will not take a question. Else, if you pose a question, I'll have someone to help me. Thank you. Crystal, are you going to help me?
Yes, you can raise your hand. We have a mic ready.
No one is asking.
Let me have Alex.
Thank you very much, Josephine. So I'm here wondering, as Rwanda, where are we at in terms of on some of these technologies, especially things like metaverse? I know maybe this is an answer that we would share with someone, but I'm asking for someone else. Imagine that it's not me.
Thank you. Where are we at? Can we have another question maybe? Turi kumwe n'abanyeshuri, mwisanzure. This is your opportunity to interact with the industry. Dufite abantu benshi bafasha kugira ibyo mwumva. Maybe not only me, but many other industry players. Yes, feel free.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. My name is Maurice. So I would like to ask a question regarding what you have been delivering on artificial intelligence. So by speaking of artificial intelligence, so I would like to ask you, so imagine the world where the robots are making decisions at human intelligence. So isn't this going to cause like dependability or reliance, since the robots are going to be thinking as human does? So I don't think that human intelligence will be like needed. So I do think that this is going to cause like a real big problems, since we are going to be relying on robots making decisions. What if their decisions are wrong? Isn't this going to cause something wrong than like using human intelligence than robot thinking?
Thank you. Your names again?
Maurice.
Maurice. Do we have anyone else? Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. My name is Isabel from Strata Foundation. I wanted to understand, especially on the last point you made around the job market and the social impact, what steps is Rwanda taking, looking at some of the jobs that will go, especially the lower tier jobs? There's a company called AIR that was launched about a month ago, which will take over customer service jobs, for example. So when we're looking at these technologies, what are we doing in terms of preparing the younger generation for a different type of job market, where some of the early graduate jobs are going to be replaced by technology? And what you talked about, RISA's role around skills acquisition. So I wanted to understand what steps you guys are taking, and someone like our foundation, Strata Foundation, how we can support you with that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel.
Hi, my name is Mercy from University of Kigali. I just have a comment around AI and robots. These are things that are programmed by people. It's a data that is fed to those robots or machines to behave whichever way they are programmed to behave. So we should embrace AI and the robots for the betterment of the world. But policies should be there to govern the technology and also the people who develop this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercy. We had someone behind.
Someone?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. And I think I'll start by thanking you, Mercy, for helping me to answer the very first question on AI. And I believe we can always get inputs from other colleagues. But what is true about AI is that it's really adding value. When you see how it's helping, in decision making, being able to really leverage the huge amount of data that is generated throughout digitization, the very many systems in place. With AI, we are able to do a lot in a very short period of time. But as you rightly put out, the challenge around leaving it all to the systems or the computers to do, that would be a very wrong step. And it comes back to what the person behind want to achieve. And again, we don't forget that there are bad intentions or badly intentioned people. Hence, it's always good to have the right policies and regulations in place to make sure this is properly done and actually used in a proper manner. From Isabel, the job market and how this is being affected by emerging technologies, what is being done. Yes, we are very much conscious about the people to be empowered as per today's theme. Whatever we do, we need to make sure we are empowering our people, not actually challenging them or even putting them at risk. So there's a lot happening in terms of, one, creating awareness, building skills from a basic level, people getting to know and adopt technology, but also at advanced level, as I mentioned, training engineers, making sure even people in other sectors not directly related to technology having the basics they need to keep up. And I want to say, for instance, from the example of customer services being overtaken by machines, we should be able, through our education system, to have alternatives for our people. I remember, I don't know if Eugene is still in the room. On one panel, he asked me, "Are you afraid?" And I said, "No." And why? I believe we should not train people to stay where they finish at. Our journey should be a learning kind of journey, where with whatever comes, we are equipping our learners with the ability to keep up, to adjust, and actually stay ahead. So I believe it's something that is not yet where it should, but we keep, advocate for, how do we train better our teachers to start with? Then our learners to have a curriculum that is enabling that. And of course, as we adopt technology, we should make sure we are closing on actually this gap that is tending to come up as we adopt technology. And I believe it might be a challenge today, but we have to start, and we should have started years before. But the good thing is that we have it, and we are very much aware of it. When you see at the University of Rwanda, in the different centers of excellence, the kind of jobs that or research projects that are being worked on, I believe it's a step that we can actually build on, because usually we would have people get trained abroad, but the advantage of having research done in our country, we have an opportunity to have students working on our problems, including the ones we are discussing. And if they are working on some technologies, solutions, and innovations, they are most likely to be applicable to our context and actually helping in addressing such challenges. I don't want to be the only one to respond to this. I would want to welcome anyone else in the room who wants to maybe add on something, contribute. Yes, Jimmy?
Thank you so much, Madam CIO, for a great presentation of this interesting topic. Yeah, there are so many. You mentioned technologies, but I can see you are taking much time on the AI and the advanced robotics. So I want also to take time to contribute to where you paused the first time. And if I'm right, it's about you reserved yourself on mentioning whether it is true that these robotics will end up by taking all our jobs and we remain idle, or that they will reach a stage to distinguish us and finish us so that they remain themselves on this world. Starting from this possibility of them reaching the stage where they take over all our jobs, I think nobody should have a problem on that, because initially we are already human beings. I took a time one day analyzing these words of why English people decided to call us human beings instead of being human doings. So in case we reach a stage where we have human doings, as far as we remain human beings, I don't see any problem, because they will be doing all the works and they supply us with the basic needs we have. And then we stay with our social lives. They do the job, they supply us with the food and the accommodation, and we just remain with the task of enjoying, conversating. We really become social, because I think we have lost so many identities of ours by pursuing the jobs. And I don't think pursuing jobs has left us with the fundamental rights of pursuing happiness and the life. Now, I want to ensure everyone that if these guys will just come and do the agriculture, the transport, everything, so I think the human being will have reached the optimum happiness stage they can have on this world. And unless provided they don't cause any harm, they do the job, they do the perfect human doings, it's okay. The second one is the most dangerous, I think, but I like that one as well, even better than the first one, because when you see, among the weaknesses of human being, there is also being sincere. If I try to be sincere, this humanity has failed this word, according to me. We have failed this word. And this is clear from the when you read the Bible or the Gita or the Muslim book, Musahaf, how do you call it? Quran Tukufu. There is also another one for those guys of China, Buddhist. You would find in the other pages, there's something written that shows that our Creator is not this way they want to make us to be. There's something wrong which you can see on a daily basis. We want to destroy this world by nuclear weapons. We are lying each other on a daily basis. We are competing. I can't describe the weaknesses of human beings to finish them. And there is another, on those scriptures, that God actually had a plan to change the things, and it's just a matter of time. Probably, since we believe that some kind of these high technologies includes also some blessing from God, I think creating high-level robotics which can finish us is a blessing from God to some people who could do that the same way they did these advanced technologies which we are enjoying now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. I think we needed the other version that would make us smile, at least. But thank you for your ideas, and I believe we have different ways of looking at things, and yeah, being optimistic or pessimistic can always add value in some ways. Any other comments, maybe? Yes. Okay. So I'm told we are out of time. Let me thank you once again for your kind attention.
Thank you, Josephine. I think there should be a part 2 of this presentation. Thank you again. I think part of the questions that Josephine has raised but answered as well, that we had captured earlier. We looked at the internet safety tips, the cautiousness, cybersecurity, the measures, the parental control. And now here we are, we moved from internet accessibility to affordability, and now we're into the proper technology, the proper list of technology where we had the quantum computing, metaverse, but now we also talked about the AI. So we're left to understand, I think, from a question that was asked earlier, my bad, about the ethics regarding AI. Are we to trust it? Are we to be cautious? What are the policies around? I think, as was just mentioned, now that we're no longer the human beings, rather the human doings, the question is, are we going to be left to enjoy life and we let the AI run our life? Or are we to sit back and let it finish us, as it was just raised? However, as we keep going, however, we have a policy in Rwanda, the artificial intelligence policy for Rwanda, that has been developed. So without asking and leaving us in the limbo to understand what is this policy about, how are we to be cautious, what are the ethics to evolve around it, kindly allow me to welcome Mr. Joris Kizere, who is the Acting Managing Director of the Center of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, who is going to run us into a presentation about this AI policy for Rwanda, what it means, what we meant to do, how we to be cautious, etc. So we look forward to having the questions. And in order to keep the time, we'll have the 20 minutes for the presentation, plus Q&A. You're welcome, Mr. Joris.
Thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. So a couple quick words about the center before we dive in. So we are a partnership between the Rwandan government and the World Economic Forum. So we belong to a global network of centers, and what we're doing across the world is advise different governments, in our particular case, the Rwandan government, on policy and governance matters around artificial intelligence and data. And so I'll share a few words about the national AI policy that we have recently helped the ministry pass. But I won't use all 20 minutes. I'll use maybe 5-10 minutes maximum, because I think a lot of the questions that are coming from the audience are more interesting than anything I can share here. And so in that same vein, before I proceed, just because this question of is AI going to replace us, the dangers of AI, I want to share a couple analogies before I dive into the presentation that we can take in, and then looking forward to more questions in the end. So one is, imagine when the calculator was being invented. You could imagine a lot of mathematicians at that particular point are probably like, okay, is this now essentially replacing us, rendering our jobs obsolete? Clearly that has not been the truth, because mathematicians have then gone on to create AI, which we're talking about today. So that's one analogy. Second analogy is, imagine when the Wright brothers were coming up with the airplane. So many people rightfully asked, are you worried about the different dangers that the airplane can bring, in terms of somebody can just fly a plane over some country or some region somewhere and drop a bunch of bombs? And it's true that that's happened. but airplanes have also allowed us to travel from one part of the world to another in a day. It has allowed us to be able to optimize supply chains in a way that we couldn't be able to do with just traditional logistics solutions. That same technology now allows us to deliver blood to the most remote parts of Rwanda, and it's expanding beyond Rwanda to many other parts. So yes, it's true that the airplane has come with some, unwanted, let's say, side effects, but it's also true it's allowed us to do many things that as humans we never would have been able to do had we had the airplane. So I hope that we can continue talking about AI in that perspective of, sure, there's a lot of negative benefits that can come with this, but how do we plan for those and mitigate those? But I hope the conversation can be also just as important on what are the benefits that AI can drive and how do we empower our populations, both consumers but also producers of these technologies, to be able to help us address some of our biggest challenges. So I'll put that aside, and then I'll share a few words about the national AI policy. I was not very, I wasn't sure who was going to be in the room, so I kept it very broad, very general. And again, like I said, looking forward to the brilliant questions that you're already asking. So I'll share a little bit about, at a high level, the national AI policy and a few words about why this is important. The vision of the AI policy is for Rwanda to become a global center for AI research and innovation. And we want to do that by leveraging AI to power economic growth, so really economic and social growth, so really answering one of those biggest problems that Rwandans are facing, and how can we use AI to address those. And we hope that by doing that, we're going to be able to improve quality of life for Rwandans and position Rwanda as a global innovator when it comes to AI products and services. The policy has 5 broad national objectives. First is positioning Rwanda as Africa's AI lab, so going into this general aspirations of the country to be a proof of concept hub, the innovation place where all Africans, people that are not Africans, come to innovate for the continent and for the world. We hope that this policy can be one step in helping us achieve that vision. B, creating an open data ecosystem as an enabler for the AI revolution. As I think has already come up, data is perhaps the most important ingredient into creating AI solutions and products. So how do we transition to that sort of world? 3 is how do we drive public sector transformation to fuel AI adoption. So the Rwandan government has, thankfully for all of us Rwandans, been very effective in delivering services for all Rwandans. And so how do we continue enabling government to do that using AI? And in so doing, create an example for other innovators, the private sector, to also look to ways to adopt AI. So that goes into the 4th objective there, which is how do we accelerate responsible AI adoption in the private sector. And then lastly, building AI literacy and 21st century skills. There's a question I was asked earlier about community support agents. So how do we empower them to use AI, but how do we also empower other folks to use AI, but also create AI as well? And so the policy informed 6 priority areas, which can be broken down into 3 different categories. So the first one is this category of enablers. So what are those core fundamental things we need to have in place in order to see an innovation ecosystem around AI? First is 21st century skills and high AI literacy. So in there's 2 things at a broad level. One is how do you, like I was saying, how do you train people to be able to use AI, whether it's to consume AI products or to use AI in their different responsibilities. And then B, how do you also train the future classes or current classes of engineers to also be able to create AI products? And there's many different things under that go to address that. Second is reliable infrastructure and compute capacity. So it goes back to the general theme of this conversation today. And third is robust data strategy. So with the right skills to consume and create AI, with the right infrastructure to build on top of AI, and with the right data ecosystem to be able to build AI, we think those are the enablers you need to then go into the acceleration category of activities, which there's 2 there. One is adoption in the public sector, and another one is adoption in the private sector. Again, the idea here is let's not just keep talking about AI as this new cool technology. How do we actually create products and services that can be used both in the public markets or in the public sector, but also in the private sector to drive value? And then lastly, and very, very importantly, is this category of safeguards. So practical, ethical guidelines around the development and deployment of AI. So this particular pillar, actually, there's a whole different document on national AI ethics guidelines, which is now owned by Rura. I think Rura is doing some final refinements to it before they put it out. But this is basically a standalone document which has a bunch of different guidelines that developers, deployers, users of AI should keep in mind. So looking at things like, you know, safety, transparency, the very valid questions around privacy that keep coming up. This is a document that essentially explains all those different guidelines that should be taken by developers of AI as they create these solutions. And so each policy area has specific goals, and I won't go into each one of them. By the way, the policy is a public document, so please, I think it should be on the ministry's website, but you can also Google it and find it. So I encourage all of you to take a look. But essentially, underneath each policy area, the 6 that I just talked about, there's specific goals or outcomes we want to see for each one of those pillars, and there's specific activities over a few years that we think should be taken at a national level to then achieve those different goals for each one of those policy areas. There's 5 sectors that we've chosen for priority development, and those are healthcare, the financial services sector, agriculture, transportation, and e-commerce. Now, this is not a comprehensive list because there's many hundreds of different, AI applies to basically every sector, pretty much applies to everything that we do in our daily lives. So there's many applications that we're looking at in the education sector specifically itself as well. There's many things that can be done in manufacturing. So this is just a set of 5, but we're looking at, there's opportunities, we have seen opportunities in many different sectors. And so why is this important? So there's a couple studies that were done a few years ago that all show anywhere between 13 to 20 trillion dollars of global economic impact by 2030. And so today, AI, as much as we're talking about AI replacing us, according to what many leading research scientists in AI say, we're very far from that reality, if it ever becomes a reality. So today, AI is as advanced, yes, but it's still very much still an emerging technology space. We're seeing better products, better service delivery in different aspects of the economy, and there's an uptick by a few companies, a few government institutions, a few people, but that sort of like level of adoption and proliferation, I guess let's say, of AI, it's still very, very, very nascent, very, very early stage. And so this 13 to 20 trillion global impact, that's more in a medium-term type forecasting, so 2030 to 2035 kind of timeline. But then beyond that, there is AI for the potential for AI to truly transform our lives as we know it, and we think in a positive way, certainly. And so these impacts, for example, these figures that you're seeing, these do not account for some of the recent advancements in AI, like generative AI. So this work was done before ChatGPT and all these generative AI solutions were in the market. So you can imagine that this $13 trillion, which already is like a, sort of like a high-level figure, that could be 50 trillion, could be 100 trillion, nobody knows. We don't really know how this is going to look like in the future. But the point is, there seems to be, and there's clear evidence already that there's a lot of potential, both economically and socially. And so if you were to zoom out in terms of how, according to current projections, how this value will be captured globally. So the rest of the world, which includes Africa and I think some parts of developing Asia, are only positioned to capture 8% of that total opportunity. And this is basically if the status quo remains, which means we largely continue to consume products developed from other parts, as opposed to creating products that can actually address our local problems. So I look at Israel, who I've had this conversation with before many times, is how can we create more Irembos of the world? How can we create more, more successful stories like Irembo by looking at what are the real problems that we have in Rwanda today, and how can we get really good, brilliant teams of engineers, Rwandan, African engineers from all over the place to build those products, taking our context into mind as they define what those problems are, but also taking our context into mind as they design those specific products. So one wish list that I had for the minister, which I've already shared before, is that how can we use government markets, government's purchasing power to create more stars, more success stories like Irembo. There's very many different problem areas we've looked at in agriculture, healthcare, transportation, also things where government has some play in the market. And so as much as we can use that space to start to launch new companies, I think is hopefully a good vision for us. And so before I pass it on to the audience for some questions, I also do want to react to Eugene's question earlier about if you're a manager and somebody comes with you with a ChatGPT recommendation, what do? For me, I don't see that any different from somebody using Google to search something or talking to the best expert they know on a certain topic, or me looking and reading the AI policy before this talk so I can have something to talk to you about. So what ChatGPT does, what large language models do in general, is to essentially look at what Google knows, look at what the best experts on a certain field know, look at what documents have been created before what they say, and then using that information to give you some recommendations. So I think it's a fantastic thing that we can all hopefully adopt, is how do you basically have all the information you need on your fingertips. So how can you use that to empower yourself to deliver better? And I think managers have a role to play in making sure that their people do this, but we also have a role to play as potential users of these technologies to use them. Somebody said that in this whole question of AI taking over our jobs, replacing it, as somebody said that AI is not gonna replace us, but really what's gonna happen is people that use AI are going to replace those that don't use AI. So a doctor who uses GPT-4 is likely going to be a much better doctor than one who doesn't use GPT-4. You can say the same about a lawyer and so on and so forth. And the underlying theme there is that it's not replacing us. Instead, it's enabling us to do more, do better, so we can spend our time on more nuanced, more complex issues of our daily responsibilities. So I'll leave it there, and I hope that there's some interesting questions and comments from the audience. Thank you. See one, yeah, see one and one here.
Thank you for the great presentation. My name is Roger from the sector of environment. So I couldn't see on the use cases my area, but there's a lot anyway. So my questions, number one, there's a slide you showed on the economic impact of AI, a global one, and I wanted to know, has there been a study or a projection of what this policy of AI implementation is going to do on a country level, maybe by 2030? If yes, could you share the figure? Or if not, I think it's relevant to have it, to see the impact. Number two is on the Rwanda, to be able to push the implementation. How is the ICT sector, positioning itself to do this? For example, creating, reusable components for AI that cut across the sectors, so that innovators don't have to reinvent the wheel. Last, on the roadmap, what are the target use cases that we have maybe by 2028? How many use cases do we want to have minimum? Thank you.
Mayor, maybe we'll do one more and then I can start with those. Yeah, please.
My name is Freddie Nwari. I'm the CEO of a steel consultant company here in Rwanda. The question I have is on the artificial intelligence. It's regarding the regulations. So we know that sometimes the AI can give you the wrong data, or at the same time you have a human error. In that case, do we have any regulation in place that can tell you who's going to be accountable if an issue can occur, and what is the when it comes to data protections, the data breach is occurred, what is the notification? Who to recall, who is going to be hold accountable, if it involves the law enforcement, for example, in terms of cybercrime, it does implicate on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe I can take those because there was a couple of questions in there, and Krista, you let me know when we run out of time. So I'll start maybe with the last questions from the gentleman there on the left. So on the issue of data breaches, that's the question that the National Cybersecurity Authority is best positioned to answer. We have been key partners with them on defining Rwanda's personal data protection and privacy law. But I know there's a panel after this on that specific topic, so I'll leave it for that. But it's essentially captured in the data protection and privacy law, whether it's for AI purposes or for any other purposes. You still have to go through the same data breach requirements and notifications and so on and so forth. In terms of AI regulations, we don't have a regulation for AI in Rwanda. But the same is true across the world because nobody really understands how to regulate this. All the questions that you're asking, nobody really knows the right answers to that. So if an AI model performs something wrong, do you go, and maybe it's a product that that's built on ChatGPT, do you go and regulate the person who built the application on top of ChatGPT? Do you go and regulate OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT? Can OpenAI say, oh, by the way, this model is only saying this because of these data sets that we trained it on them? So should you go regulate those people whose data ChatGPT used? What are the different copyright considerations there? So there's many different questions that that are still to be determined. What hopefully should happen in the future is that, and somebody talked about collaboration earlier, and this is even more true for AI than I think many technologies we've seen before, because we need some sort of a global approach to this. So people keep talking about how the aviation industry is monitored, which is like you have a global FAA that sets out guidelines and different countries sort of like adopt them differently, but there's like a general DNA that everybody follows. And something like that is needed, we think, for AI as well, such that different countries are looking at the same things, we'll start looking out for the same risks, let's say. So for that reason, it's gonna take some time, that's number one, for everybody to align. There's always a question of values when it comes to AI, whose values are you talking about, who do you consider, and so on and so forth. So long way to say that the question of how do you regulate AI still had to be determined. We're seeing different approaches emerge. The Europeans have put something out, I think a draft regulation, I forget if it's already captured. The Chinese have put something out as well. The Americans are exploring something. So many different blocks or regions of the world, let's say, are taking different approaches. And we are looking at to say, okay, what makes sense? I should also mention that Minister Paula actually was recently invited in a global AI governance alliance, going back to what I was just talking about, how do you do this internationally? So being part of forums like this, we hope will also allow us to, again, see what other countries are considering so we can inform what to do, because it's important that we have, as much as we can, have like a uniform or similar approach to addressing this. So I don't have an answer to your question yet, but it's something that I know the ministry that's a top of mind for the ministry, and they're trying to explore what are the best ways to go about this in a way that does not stifle innovation, but of course make sure that rights and privacy concerns are addressed. In the meantime, like I was just talking about, RURA has a national AI ethical guideline framework, which basically has 5 different principles that developers should consider. So everything from safety, transparency, privacy, explainability, and so on and so forth. And so, RURA should be putting those out soon. And those are not binding. They're not binding guidelines. So in the meantime, that's what we're going to be doing, putting out these guidelines as we explore a more longer-term regulatory approach, but to be determined what that's going to look like yet. I hope that answers your question. And then to go into some of the questions that were asked by the gentleman earlier. Let's see. So where is environment? So environment is captured in agriculture, which I know is not fair, but we sort of like lumped that in there. But we are definitely looking at different things in the environment space that AI can do, whether it's, which I think you've already been working on, predicting landslides, for example, floods, and so on and so forth. So predicting those, but also how do you manage them? Very interesting use cases happening across the world right now. There's the whole conversation of carbon markets. How do you monitor emissions and give the right recommendations to different folks? That's another area that we're looking at. So there's a few things in the climate space that AI can definitely help resolve, and those are captured in the agriculture bucket. However unfair that might be, I definitely recognize that. And in terms of the impact, economic impact, and what are some of those use cases? Yes, we have done this activity. And what we saw is that as of when we did it a few months ago, there's about 6% of GDP potential, which is about $600 million US when we're looking at that particular point. One thing I should emphasize on this figure is that this is just an indication of, if you were to apply this many use cases today and you apply them at 100%, how much value would you attain? So if it's, let's say, an intervention to help farmers increase yields in agriculture, looking at multiple different things, and it seems like that's driving anywhere between 5 to 10% where it's being adopted. What does that mean for Rwanda? So it's not to say we're going to capture this value by 2030 or by 2040 or 50. It's to say if you were to apply it today, given the technologies that we're seeing today, this is how much value you can attain. So practically speaking, what that means is we're not going to be able to achieve the whole 100% because adoption is not going to be 100%. But it also means that things like ChatGPT and other innovations of AI that might come up in the future, we don't know what those could do. So the impact could be 6%, it could be 20, 30, 50%, who knows. What is true is that there's definitely a lot of potential, and I'm happy to go through some of the use cases which actually you asked. There's a lot of potential, a lot of different applications that we can see. And so maybe to give a flavor of what some of the things that we're looking at already, and again, trying to use government markets and purchasing power. There's a couple of things we're exploring at the moment. One is in the health space. There's a bunch of things that can happen. AI for radiology is an increasingly important field. So machine vision, which is one aspect of AI that basically is able to understand images, has become more and more powerful. It seems to be very effective on reading X-rays, CT scans, and so on and so forth. So it's an area that we're interested in, which would be a very big impact given the fact that we have very, very, very few radiologists in Rwanda. We're not adding more, at least not in a fast way. So that's a couple areas that we're interested in. We're also looking at, going back to the question of, is AI replacing us in the community agents and so on and so forth? We're looking at how can you use ChatGPT with community health workers. And so community health workers, as we all know, they are the first line of defense for most Rwandans to enter the public health system. They're not clinically trained, yet because they're basically who's most available, they end up answering questions on on many different things. And so GPT-3, which is an earlier version of the current GPT-4, has shown that it can get the right diagnosis about 88% of the time, which is worse than a good GP. With a good GP is about 95% of the time. It's still worse than a good GP, but it's certainly better than all this. Looks like it could be better than a community health worker. So as the LLM itself also continue to get more trained, which there's a lot of medical specific LLMs that are happening, which means that 88% will gradually get better. And the benchmark, by the way, is at least as good as a human doctor. So we're gonna get to that point eventually anyway, the more we train it on specific different areas and so on and so forth. So long way to say that if you can get that 88% accuracy level already, anyway, and give it to a community health worker as the models themselves continue to get better and better, and that can engage in Kenya, Rwanda, then you can imagine that a community health worker will then have essentially the superpowers of a not so good GP, which is already a massive, and I hope there's no doctors in the room, by the way, and I'm not offending anyone, but you can imagine that that's already a very big addition to the community health worker. And again, like I said, the more the model becomes better and better, you can imagine they're gonna be able to provide better diagnosis when they need to be providing them. So somebody who needs to see the doctor right away will be able to see the doctor right away, as opposed to waiting a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and the disease is getting better, not getting worse. Same is true for doctors, by the way. My doctors will Google stuff every so often, because you just can't retain all that information. So even they can use it. You can use it to train community health workers. If it seems like it's able to do this work in their daily diagnosis, you can use it to train community health workers at scale. So there's a lot of potential there. In agriculture, I was just talking about using satellite images, soil sensors to predict yields for farmers, for example, which if they know that they're going to be harvesting so much, so on. I see Krista coming. Anyway, so I can go on and on. I'm happy to provide more examples after, but there's a lot of potential, from all over the economy. And I think what's most imperative, we hope, is that we can finally participate in the production of some of these things and go away from the consumption cultural approach that we've taken before. And I think in so doing, we're going to see more rainbows that are more contextualized to our problems and can continue to provide good examples for innovating locally. I think that's all the time that we have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joris. So I think this was also explained. I think if I could just sum it up just for a little bit, AI is not taking our jobs. It's making our lives easier. Could be taking some, but there is more to offer than just taking the jobs. I think from the example Joris just shared about 88% increase when it comes to healthcare, building our system when it comes to healthcare. You mentioned about agriculture, so we look forward to even more research that could be shared, but also the policy. I think there was a question that was asked regarding the data protection law. Gratefully, we do have a whole panel with great caliber people, but also who have been in this industry for so long. So we look forward to learning more for that. So I think without any further ado, I'm going to welcome Alex Nhare. This time around, last time he had said he does not recall the other one, but we hope to have a version number 2, who's going to lead the panel, and he's going to introduce the panelists as well, and we learn more on the data protection law in Rwanda. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Alex.
Thank you very much, Krista. Good afternoon, everyone. I know this is a tough panel, but I hope we had some good break. So without wasting more time, I'd like to invite my panelists, starting with Colonel David Kanamugire, CEO of Rwanda Cybersecurity Authority. And Mr. Akili Shema, Division Manager, Cybercrime Investigation, RIB. And Mr. Davis Mujira, CEO of Spiderbit. And Mr. Damien Ndizeye, Executive Secretary at ADECO. Thank you very much. I think we've had a few minutes here listening to Joris, although he's working out about AI, and there was a question earlier on data protection, and what these conversations, I think, presentation from Josephine as well as from Joris have showed us is that there's going to be need of a lot of data, whether it's in the metaverse or whether we are talking about AI, training large language models, and so on. And yet, although that presents an opportunity for opening up the data, there's also caution that is needed on data, protecting data for the citizens and for everyone that is involved. So I'm going to start off with the CEO, National Cybersecurity Authority, just to give us an eye-opener on what the context is and what the situation is today in Rwanda. The law came out 2020, was gazetted 2021. It's becoming effective in literally 2 months or less. And over to you, sir. What is this all about?
Thank you, Alex. I wish we were going to discuss something different. I liked the gentleman who talked about Quran, the Bible, the humanity. That was very interesting. So I wish I was participating more in that panel, not because I'm overly religious, but I really wonder about what will happen to humanity. So we share the thinking, maybe the thoughts are different, but I found that interesting. So yeah, but to just give an idea of the context, technologies, whatever they are, whatever they do, interface with human beings. They are tools of us, the people, the people that are not going to perish. Because there are those that will come, nuclear bombers, and finish us. I'm saying the ones that are going to be alive, and I hope I will be one of them. So for those of us, thank you, keep praying. Which version of the prayer book you are going to use, whatever it is. So let's say we are alive and we need to live our lives in a meaningful way with technology as tools to impact our lives. How we study. So I have to log on, create a course, choose subjects, study. The first thing they are going to know is some level of interaction between me and my trader. Who are you? Where do you live? What's your name? All the things. I will also want to have some medical care. So doctors will access something that are about me that I do not necessarily need everyone else to know. I will go to a bank, they will process my money, so my wealth, my resources, my financial means are tied to me, the person. But they can't do that without processing information about me. We call that personal data. The type of data that uniquely identifies me as a human being, processed for the purpose of giving me a service. Before, the data protection and privacy laws globally, now they are 71% of all countries globally have different sets of data privacy and protection regulations or legislation at various levels. People used to believe that the company X that has my data will use it for good. And this have proven to be not the case. So if you go with your bank and you give them your information, the bank used to think that data belongs to them. With the new sets of data regulations, they say that data belongs to the person from whom you collected their data. Therefore, the right to their privacy is a fundamental human right enshrined in many countries' constitution. In Rwanda, Article 23 of our constitution guarantees individual rights to privacy. But this was not implemented before the law online. So now, the law requires each person, each business that processes personal data to to abide by set of rules and regulation. So that's the first point. So that people's privacy matter. How you handle their data, what you do with it, has to be in the interest of the people whose data you process. So that brings an idea of a principle called consent. They must consent the way they want to use their data. Without consent, people are going to be abused. So that's the fundamental principle. So in Rwanda, a data protection and privacy law was passed last year, and it becomes effective in October, this year, October 15th. So what that means practically is that every business, every government institution that handles data will have to abide by a set of rules and regulations. And that is going to be effective 15th October. So that is the context. It is to make sure that without these measures, businesses have no element of trust. And without trust, technology is a dangerous tool. But with trust, you can safely transact. You can increase your business. So that is the context. So Rwanda is part of 71 other countries globally that ensure protection and privacy of personal data and put systems and measures to ensure it's safeguarded.
Thank you very much. Okay. It's on. It's on? Yes, it's on. Thank you very much. So you concluded with the word safeguarded. And here I want to go to Mr. Shema on balancing these. Yes, there's the safeguards and there's also the opportunity. Okay, the opportunity I think is where I see, there's internet, and today we're at the Internet Governance Forum. I have access to YouTube. I can create. I can distribute. In our in Rwanda's context of cybercrime investigation, how can we balance, or have we even have we gotten to a point where we're seeing these risks of violating people's data privacy? And if so, what measures are being taken? And as people in the technology space, I think here I speak for most of us that are here, what are our responsibilities in such a case?
Yeah, thank you, Ndare. In Rwanda right now, we see some company who disclose the personal information of their clients, so they are. We see. I think everyone knows about when you go to the some office, even the government office. We read there. We need to write your ID number, your name, and everything. That is your data. And last time, I think we arrested some people just was going and sell that data. They sell the data, the information that's from the client, the ID number, and we see some fraud based on that. People register the SIM card on the ID that's took from the security guys at the gate. We have many cases in Rwanda. I think that this law want to help us a lot to work on that, because when I see in this law the section 2, offense and penalties, we have the instrument that can help us to tackle someone who commit crime using the data. You asked me about we see on social media, YouTube channels, we see many people just sometimes just like took everything and put on social media without the consent of the people who took the information. We have we see the case going on, and this law want to help us a lot to go inside and to understand, and even during the campaign to explain, because sometimes we arrest people and say, oh, I don't know about this law, I don't know if it was about the law, or can I put something on internet without the consent? We see that many times. We see that the case come in RIB. Even some people complain about it. I think this will be our, will help us a lot in an investigation.
Thank you very much. As you were speaking, what came to mind, and honestly, I just peeped at Fande's iPad, and I realized that some of us may not even know that this law is already published. So if you don't, the web link is dpo.gov.rw. Okay, so that's a basic starting point. And the reason I bring it up is because I think there are some words here that are very technical. And instead of going to Davis, I'm going to come back to Afonde and ask him, there's a data subject, there's consent, there's a controller, there's processor. If you don't mind, just giving us a small brief so that we're able to have a conversation with everyone else on the same page.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm going to try to be a lawyer, a legal person, talk about the law. And as a disclaimer, my specialty is from screwdrivers. So if I fall short of explaining, I'm an engineer by training.
We invited some lawyers,
so
they will help.
If I don't explain things in a more legal, please bear with me. So I'm using that as a disclaimer. But let me start by what are the big scope, what this law is all about. And the first thing is the scope. The scope of the law, I read off let's start by the purpose of the law. So it aims for protection of personal data and privacy and determines how personal data is processed. So that is the purpose. So personal data is data of an individual, a human being. In legal terms, you could be a person that is another entity, but this time it's a human being. And the personal data is the type of, we call them the data subject. The person is a data subject. And personal data is that type of data, such as someone's name, telephone number, the item that is written to, against your name. Let's say if you own land, your UPI, anything that can help people identify you uniquely as you. The law categorizes it as personal data. And the law establishes the basis of processing that data. And it says whoever is processing that type of data must obtain consent from the data subject. What that means, it changes the agency, the ownership. So you, the company, let me use a bank, for example, that collects this data. That data does not belong to you, so you can only use it for the purpose of providing a service to this person on the agreed terms. So that is the purpose of the law. Now, the scope is, it sets the type of entities, the interaction, the elements that constitute lawful processing of this data. And it sets categories, the entities. First of all, there is the data subject, the individual from whom data is collected. There is the entity that actually does something with that data. The law calls them the data controller. A data controller is any business, any institution that will need this data. It could be a school or a hospital. The hospital cannot operate without a list of patients. Or when you go to a hospital, they say, what's your name? So they are seeking, and then the law says, tell us the purpose for which you are collecting this data. And they say, it is so that we can provide treatment. So then they ask you, do you allow us, the hospital, to share your data with the pharmacy? If you say no, then pharmacy will not have access to your data. But the law now goes beyond this. If you want that data, you must use it for the purpose for which you collected it for. And that is called a purpose limitation. You cannot use data for something beyond which you intended to collect it. So the other element in the law is the data processor. A data processor is an agent of a data controller who will take that data and process it on behalf of the person who owns the business, for example. Let's say, let me use an example of an advertising firm. Someone would say, we collected data, we are a bank, but we need you to run these adverts about these individuals. So the bank gives them permission, or you are an agent. Let's say pick MTN. MTN is a data controller. We, the subscribers, are the data subject. But the people you see on the umbrellas on the street are agents of MTN. We call those data processors. They collect your data, they interface with you, the data subject, but they send the data back to MTN. Those are called the data processors. And then there are third parties. Third parties are someone who could be a sub-agent. So what we need to know for the scope of this law is the purpose of the law, is the parties to the law, the data controller, the data processor, and the data subject, and then the principles that govern how this law operates. So one of the principles, data must be processed legitimately within the confines of the law. 2, ownership belongs to the data subject. 3, illegal processing of the data that is not within the interest of the data subject is criminal, and it is penalized. And the penalties can go up to 5% of global revenue. 5% of global revenue for a company that is international is in millions or billions of dollars. So give you a case in point. Meta, the owners of Facebook, were fined last month 1.3 billion euros, or dollars, I have to be sure about that, for transferring data of Facebook users from EU to California, where their servers are based. And Ireland court fined them with that fine. Reason is they set data outside the jurisdiction of GDPR, this is the European General Data Protection Regulation, without complying with rules of external data transfer. So one of the elements is where you collect data from and where you process it and where you keep it are also governed by the law. So you can't say, oh, I love the cloud so much, I'll go there, I'll post it, so that will be. It's cheaper, it's easier, but it has no something they call sufficient safeguards. So if you're sending it to a country which does not necessarily give the same levels of protection, then we say, hold on. So that is what I can give with my limited legal knowledge. But it's dpo.gov.rw. Look at the law. There is a short version, there is a long version, with so much, and we have people who are more qualified than me to take this deep dive.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna come to you, Davis. They've just given us a breakdown as a company that is both software development as well as web hosting, in essence, in one way or another. You're one of these 3 categories that they have described. How have you prepared for this, and how do you see this new law actually opening up opportunities, or even maybe bringing limitations if there are any?
Thank you. It's a delicate balance to have the data open and at the same time adhering to the laws, the data laws. So at Spiderbit, yes, we consider the two, especially when hosting data or developing solutions for our clients. We have internal policies that govern how we collect data, how we store data, how we process it, and of course, we ensure that we collect consent from the users before we get them shared. We also, in terms of data sharing, we consider 2 important techniques. One is minimization and anonymization. However, basically anonymization is like he said, you're collecting medical records. And
you consider masking, let's say, patient names or phone number. So minimization, you may collect you may not share non-sensitive information. However, it also has limitations to, importantly, emerging technologies like AI. So AI feeds on large data set and diverse data sets. So if we feed, imagine you're limiting that access, you're likely to have starving AI. So it's really a complex thing that has to be looked into carefully, especially on the legal perspective and policy framework to make sure that there is a room for growth and careful consideration and innovative approach. On the side of the security, we ensure that the system we develop, we follow industrial best practices like before deployment of the system or making it go live, we make sure that we have conducted thorough security assessment or vulnerability assessment. We make sure that we have validations, and we make sure that where we host data, the servers have security mechanisms in place, like firewalls. And we encourage, as well as educating the users how this data or how their data shall be used, and also employing the security standards, like making sure that they have enabled like two-factor authentication where necessary, and strong passwords. There's a practice where you find, like most of the time, users, simply emails, you're saving emails in the browser, like remember the password. This is a starting point for security loopholes. It is as simply like you have your door, you leave the key in the door, and then you come back, you found that maybe your assets have been taken or robbed. Simply, it started with you. So looking at what we're discussing right now, what came to my mind or what triggers me to look into that is to urge the policymakers to critically look at this, thinking that now data is a global asset. How do we make it open? How do we make it enabled to allow emerging technologies like AI and have the two at the same time? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Davis. I'm coming to ADECO, but I'm not so sure everyone here knows that there is actually an organization that protects or that looks at their interests as consumer rights. So, Mr. Damier, if you don't mind, please just give us a small introduction. I know for these other three, I didn't ask for their introductions, but for you, if you don't mind, and then tell us what your views are in light of this new law that is coming in. As the CEO, NCSA, has indicated, one is to make sure that they're protecting the data subject, mostly the individuals in this case. But as ADECO, what are your views? What are you seeing as the opportunity or the challenges?
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Mbonyi. Mr. Damian had an emergency at last team unit, and I'm work with ADECO, Rwanda Consumers Rights Protection Organization, and I'm especially in charge of advocacy. Yeah, Rwanda Consumers Rights Organization is a non-governmental organization focusing mainly on advocacy, consumer education, and information. Coming to your question, first of all, as ADECO, we are very happy that In Rwanda, we have a data protection, privacy protection law, because for us, it came late, but it is better, late is better than never. It is a new law, yes, good. It protects privacy of people. For us, what we see, there is other things to do for the enforcement of the law. You can ask me why, because the problem we have here in Rwanda is a problem of information of public about our laws. Sometimes our laws are gazetted and they still there, written there in the gazette, but no practical ways to disseminate in a friendly, usable language for community. For example, that is an issue, meaning that we recommend that this good law can be disseminated to consumers, to data controller and data processor, in general to the public. I think it will help for everyone. Another thing, an issue that we see, we hope concerned organization, institutions are thinking about is the enforcement or the control mechanism. How do we know if the bank or health facilities has misused their clients' data? I think there is a need to put in place mechanism, monitoring, regular monitoring and evaluation to see if those data processors and the controller are not abusing or are not against what is prescribed by the law. I think we have to do much about this. And also, I think the issue about laws or policies, you know, there are many principles of consumers' rights. And among them, we have the principle of complaint and redress. Are there mechanisms, easy mechanisms that allow consumers to complain when their data have been misused? Yeah, I think we need, after the law, briefly, we need to put in place, to set in place other strategies for dissemination, for control measures, and also for complaint and redress mechanism. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. You really bring us, or you send us to work, if I may say. And now I'm coming to Mr. Shema. Are we ready from the points that Paul is making in terms of enforcement, or even just getting the people ready so that they can make the right, they understand what their rights are. Yeah, and sometimes I think you say that you arrest someone and then they say, we didn't know. So how is RIB preparing, especially for enforcement of this new law?
Yeah, we have collaboration with Afande David here, and we have every time we have campaign, we have awareness campaign on cybercrime, on cyber security, and this is a part of our collaboration every day we do with NCC to educate people about this law, have campaign, go to the radio, TVs to explain about this law. After that one, nothing can to help us to understand, and no one can say, I don't know about this law. It's like every time we need to just educate, every time to be on the area to explain through using the platform, using social media to explain and to give them people understand about their right. Because of what David said about your information in the bank, you need to share your information, you need to have like identification to know. My information from I give to any bank can be shared with another bank or through social media or another platform. You need to know about that one. He said about the consumer need to know who is accessing my data. If it's not after that one, if it's not allowed, you can make a complaint to. You have the based on the law, you can make a complaint. You can be because we have the law, we have everything to help us to help us in investigations.
Thank you. Afande David, I saw that there's a number, a phone number. Is that a number where we report when we suspect that 99 something? Yeah.
So thank you. So first of all, there is an established data protection office. If you go to dpo.gov.rw, it works in Kachiru, opposite, what is the name of this hotel?
Umubano.
Umubano, former Umubano. So that's where the data protection office is. It's on the ground floor. If you go to dpo.gov.rw, you'll find all the information how to get them. But I want to comment briefly on on Paul's questions, which are quite pertinent, about awareness. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Richter for, this is one of the sessions of awareness. Because we realize that you can publish laws, you can have them gazetted, but it takes time for people to really get to know how they work. But once a law is published as a law, then it is actually what it is. It is the law. And ignorance is no defense. So not knowing is not one of those that you are excused. It's published, it's there, so the onus rests on the people to know what this law. But what I think is very important, and to avoid, particularly about the consumers, I want to talk about the rights so that you can help educate people about their rights. One, the law comes with specific rights, and these are very, very, very essential. And one of them is the right to personal data. So the owner, let's also maybe to some also, you've mentioned about balancing open data. First of all, the data class, the class of data we're talking about, is one called personal data. It's not all the data. So personal data is my name, my race, my religious belief, my medical history. It's the one that is tied to me as the individual. It's not any other data that is on the internet. That should be open, it should be free, we all agree on it, about that. But why would you need to know my blood type? For whatever reason, I want to be open, but to which extent do you really want to be open? So privacy is a fundamental human right. So it doesn't say, don't be open, but share only with your consent. So go ahead and share, but allow share, right? So that's, there shouldn't be
confusion.
So that because you want to be open, therefore, okay, so you want to be open, so why don't you leave your house open at night? Right? Really. Or why don't you go to your bedroom, you lock? So what happened to the privacy? Even again, you lock your kids outside. Right? Why don't you say, no, we are very transparent in our home. I walk naked, so I have nothing to hide. Right? So really privacy is at the core of humanity. That's why they invented clothing. Right? So why don't you say, oh, you know what? I have this very beautiful type of thing I want to show. Well, you can choose to show what you wear or don't wear, but it has to be your choice. Right? So that is the essence of privacy. your right to choose what you want to share. If you choose what you want to share it, go ahead and share it. No problem with that. But because some people are not even able to make a decision for themselves, the law protects them. So you go, you ask a 14-year-old kid to take a photo, and you're dating her or him, and then you put it, and then use it for blackmail. And this kid commits suicide. Society is there to protect them. If you are a website and you publish that, our friends will be calling you and asking you what's your father's name and date of birth, and right? Bagutuma ababyeyi, for those who right? So because of that, the law sets very specific rights. Let me read very briefly about this. One is you have the right to your personal data. So that means you choose who uses it, who has it. Two, you have the right to object, to refuse how it will be used. Three, you have the right to decide where it goes. Why should you go to MTN, they ask you your date of birth? You go to Airtel, they say, give us the same information. You already give it to them. You want, what you give your data here, then you go, you ask, so now the law says, you have the right to tell MTN that I already gave you that data, give it to Airtel. Okay, you go to a bank, they ask you, what's your father's name, your date of birth, what do you own? I tell you, you give me a loan. Then I change a bank from MTN, from BK to EcoBank. Ask me the same information. Why? So that is the right to portability. So take the same information, I instruct you at no extra cost and burden to me to give it there and give it accurate, and if you make an error, you are in trouble. Our friends will come after you. So, right? So that is the right to portability. Another right that you need to know and educate your people is the right to object to automated processing. Someone talked about artificial intelligence. Some automated processing has inherently built-in biases, like profiling. Let me give you a case. Some people who have used CCTVs in some cities, but mostly in Europe and North America, they can look at you and look at your color and your gender, and they say, this person looks like a criminal. So if I'm a man and I'm walking next to a woman and they are trying to predict who is likely to be a thief, they might profile me using AI, the great thing they talk about, because it is trained on biased data. Has anyone gone through immigration in some countries, and then they look at you, they ask you more questions than they ask others? Huh? Right? So they say, where are you coming from? You already have your passport. So where else could I be coming from? From where am I? And they say, when are you coming back? You say, it's also there. Are you really going to come back? Well,
are you really from that country?
And then you start to say, do you have enough money to guarantee that you will come back? And then you say, okay, fine. Do you ask the same questions when they are coming to my country? So that is a type of a bias. When you come here, I open my arms. When I come to you, you want to strangle me. It's still the same arms, but in a different direction, right? So these are biases inherently built. So you have the right to object to automated processing. So the system, when you are applying for college, they don't put you in a certain category. When you are seeking medical data, they don't ask you for the type of disease that they think you should be suffering from, even before they admit you. You know, anyone who might have gone to some hospitals, say, where do you come from? Oh, please check for this and this and this and this. The others are, you just make sure they have glucose and other things, right? Huh? There are diseases that they are attributed to some type of people, depending on where they are. And they say, the doctor, before they treat you, can you check that that person who comes doesn't have malaria? Even polio, which has been eradicated for centuries, you are required to carry the yellow fever card. You remember that thing? Mm. But some people are very smart. They stamp it even without vaccinating you. So anyway, so that is the right. The other thing, that is the right to object to automated system so that the system cannot. The other one is to erasure. I no longer to keep my data, the right to erasure, delete it. And then right rectification, change what is not right, and then I can choose who will inherit my data if I'm not available. So those are some of, and then the right to representation. So those are a few of the rights. Please inform them to your people. We'll do a campaign. So this can go on, but those are rights inherently built into the law. Knowing about them is not an excuse.
Thank you very much. I know that there are very many hot questions, I think, from the audience. I'm going to take only two. You'll excuse us. I know it's already beyond the time that we're supposed to be here. So if you have a burning question for anyone on the panel, please introduce yourself, get a microphone, introduce yourself, and ask your question or comment. Thank you. Oh, we are too hungry and we're just ready to go. Yes, there's a lady. Anyone else? The last one? Okay, and a gentleman here, and we're good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alia Muhire. I would like to ask Davis, while quoting what he said as data is a global asset at the moment, I would like to ask him, while he said that when they are programming their softwares, they will have to make sure that before going live at the end, before they hand over to the software, they make sure that the company they're handing it over has all the security measures. But you said that you do it at the end while going on live. What if at the end of the time, the company that you're going to hand it over, you find that their security measures regarding the data protection, even for the cyber security, does not comply with what you have? For instance, for the infrastructure or any other thing, as you said, for the softwares, the firewalls, or any other thing. What happens at that moment if it happened, you are doing it at the end and you have to hand it over to them at that moment? And as we all know, upgrading the infrastructure and every other thing, the most things that are costly. Or at the end of the time, you find that that company is storing that data to the cloud while they don't have, they haven't yet registered for the data storage outside of the country or any other thing. Thank you.
Let's take the second question so that we wrap up once.
Good afternoon. My name is Blair Wahizi. My question is a two-part question. We all get those, do you agree to the terms and conditions and privacy policy notifications? And if you don't accept them, you cannot be able to use maybe your phone or certain application. Right now, and part of the theme is the internet we want, empowering all people. How are we going to strike a balance? One of the sub-themes of this theme is about avoiding internet fragmentation. How are we going to strike, what strategies are going to be put in place to strike a balance between internet fragmentation, which is not avoiding internet fragmentation, and also protecting that information that we were talking about? My other question is going to be about the data protection law. What strategies are being put in place in order for applications or places that have not been complying with that law, now that the law is going to take effect, to make sure that the information that has been kept there is either deleted or destroyed now that the new data privacy, the data protection law is being implemented? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We start with Davis, then I think the last question is for Afande.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. First, starting with the data as a global asset. If you see around the world, now the leading companies are the ones that are having like a big number of users. talk about ChatGPT, talk about Facebook, Twitter, and all other platforms. Having data gives you access to provide more services to extend your product line. Coming to the second question, where I asked, why should we do checks or security checks at the end of the system development? Usually, following as per the industry practices, it's hard to check the security loopholes or vulnerabilities before you complete the development. And at the start of the development of the system, you usually, as the software developer, you need to provide the system requirements. These ones include the resources the system will need, the infrastructure in terms of maybe space or processors or RAM, and the security aspects of it. You need to check as you, the developer, make sure that it meets the standards or the requirements, all what you propose or recommend. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Afande?
Can I request that he repeats that section? I didn't capture it well.
Your question. So I think mostly on what happens after October to the data that they've been collecting and processing, but let him.
Thank you so much. You pretty summed it up very well. Like you said, when it takes effect in October, what happens? The data has been collected before that by institutions that don't comply with the data protection law. And my other question was about one of the sub-themes of the Internet We Want, empowering all people, was about avoiding internet fragmentation. And in order to do that is not make sure that the information is, they're not information borders. So how are we going to strike a balance between protecting our data, but also preventing the fragmentation of the internet? Thank you.
So, okay, a quick one. The law was passed on October 13th, I think, 2021. So it gave a period of 2 years to collect, to make sure that you put the data in order. And that means you put in what we call safeguards. The safeguards are of two categories. They are called organizational safeguards, meaning you update your internal policies, procedures, you train your staff, you appoint the data protection officer, you update your manuals, you print the consent forms. All those things are called organizational measures. Readiness for an organization to be legally compliant with the law. There are other measures which we thought would be costly and take longer and require more resources. They are called technical measures. And those are things that deal more with the protection side, while the organization will deal more with the privacy side. So the protection side is mostly technical. Your servers, your encryption, your passwords, where your data is kept, the format in which it is kept, who has access to it. So the law gave 2 years for organizations to put that whole in order. So let's say you came from space, the other part that we're talking about, and then you landed and you found this law. You are not a criminal. You won't have a problem with him because you cannot be punished by other laws for a crime that you did not commit before the law was in force. So you will not be penalized for any data that you collected without consent before October 15th, 2021. However, you've had 2 years to update that. So we still have to be your friends, okay? Very, very good friends. We invite you for coffee. We ask you how many sugars, how many things. As they are bringing it, we also tip our friends. Say, you know, we are meeting this person for coffee. Do you want to sit into the discussion? And we are asking him about something very interesting about the client's data, but we want to see if he missed the train, We still have small vehicles that can still take him. We want to give him 3 months because we want to reduce the burden of compliance. If those 3 months are not enough, maybe you really don't want to walk. So we give you a walking stick. Not to beat you or anything, just use it to say, do you want us to send you some people to help you in case you have issues? After that, we advise you. Then we start writing formal letters. We invite you for a hearing. And we do something they call DPI, Data Protection Impact Assessment. We visit you. We assess the risk at which you put your client's data at risk. But that's on the assumption that you wasted 2 years. But right now, we've had thousands of companies comply. So we are already on a good setting. The ones that don't comply, maybe the risk is not big. We still have small and micro enterprises that have 10 people. So that one, there is really no shortcut. It's the law. We are here to enforce the law. If you can question it, you can argue with it. It's like if you are, let's consider the traffic police officer. They are there to enforce traffic laws. They will not penalize you for anything not related to a certain law. Overspeeding, bypassing, those are things in the law. But you can't say, you know, I didn't even know that you really need a driving permit to drive, so why are you stopping me? Wait a minute. You never know there are driving schools? You think, and then so you know, they never really taught me how to, okay, say thank you. It's another case, we'll find a way of dealing with it. But we, as the Data Protection Office, our role is to enforce the law as it is for when it gets into effect. So the onus rests on everybody to comply. So really there is no, so that's one thing. Now let me talk about the internet fragmentation. I think it's a very tricky one. Remember again, we are talking about personal data. So internet by design is fragmented. By design, if you understand the difference between circuit switching and packet switching. Packet means distributing, reunite, combine, address, and transmit. So data in the internet by design is fragmented. And fragmentation is not a bad thing. It breaks down from avoiding a single point of failure. It does increase the processing costs, but it's inherently more robust. So you have small silos that are joined by protocols and allows the internet to be more robust and resilient. So I don't know what they mean by fragmentation, but that it is fragmented by design and reunited by laws and rules and protocols. So what we care for is that we have agreed rules of practices that govern how best internet works. So that's what I can say, but these are discussions that can go on forever.
Thank you very much, our panelists. I'm just gonna ask, starting with Paul, just in 30 seconds, last message, then Davis, then Shema, and Afande.
Thank you very much. What I can say, consumers have right to education. Let us join our efforts. It is not only the task for the government, for ADECOR, it is the task for all of us, operators, development organizations, NGOs, all of us. Let us go and educate our people about this important law. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. From the innovation space or startups or tech companies, yes, we need to understand that data protection is also key. We need to ensure security of our systems. We need to make sure that we have consent from the end users. From the policymakers, we would recommend if we can regularly review and update the policies to make sure that it incorporates the components of technology advancement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. from my side, just please advocate this law to the to our people to understand and to know about their rights, about data protection and their data that will be protected. And please, and their data that will be protected. And please, feel free to contact any office of RIB or NCA if you have some check. Thank you.
So my parting word would be, trust is the currency of technology. If you don't have it, internet is not beneficial. If your privacy is going to be compromised, it won't be beneficial. Privacy is an inherent human right. Safeguard it. And that shouldn't be negotiated. Thank you.
So, a round of applause again. Just thank you very much. Our panelists really, really educative, and let's all go, as Paul has advised us, and educate our people, our communities on their rights in the data space. Thank you very much.
Thank you immensely to our panelists. That was a great discussion that also just left us with a lot of questions, as Alex has mentioned. And just also to mention, I think the last resolution in terms of the data protection law that has just been enacted or put in place, this was from the previous meeting. So this is also to say we all look forward to what's going to come from this current meeting. And again, there's a word that kept coming back in terms of collaboration. This is all to invite us again to work together, avoid the silos, and get to learn from each other. Without any further ado, this was to thank you immensely for all making it here, for the discussion, the contributions, the questions. We look forward to seeing you next, and to also thank our main sponsor for today, which was GIZ. It is a great pleasure to have worked with you, and we look forward to foster the collaboration and the work together. Thank you so much to every single person, to everyone. However, before you leave, I know we might be hungry. There's lunch that's going to be offered right outside. There's going to be protocol that shows you the way. And it was a great pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Mutima,